You ever wake up to the sound of birds chirping, sun peeking through the tent flap, and your first thought is, dang, that bear was loud last night? Well, that's a normal Tuesday for me. Name's Ryan. I'm a 27-year-old park ranger, and I live about as close to the edge of the wilderness as you can get without needing a permit. Think national park/reserve, mountains all around, dirt roads, pine trees tall enough to hide a cell tower, and the air so clean it almost tastes sweet. I've got a one-room log cabin, no TV, no internet, just me, my gear, and a view that makes all those tech bros cry on their treadmills. I guess you could say I'm an adventure junkie. Always have been. Camping with bears, done it, sleeping under a thunderstorm in a hammock. Twice. Ate nothing but beef jerky for breakfast 5 days straight once just because I could. The local store guy thinks I'm nuts, but he still stocks the teriyaki kind I like. I live out here because, honestly, it's where I belong. The quiet, the trees, the rush of wind down a ravine. It all makes sense to me in a way cities never could. Growing up, we didn't have much. My folks were good people, hardworking, kind. The kind who packed you a sandwich, even if they were skipping lunch themselves. But money? Well, that was always tight. Vacations meant a beat-up tent, a bag of dollar store marshmallows, and the same pair of jeans all week. I didn't care. Those were the best days of my life. I remember the crackle of the campfire, Mom grilling whatever Dad pulled out of the lake that morning. Bluegill, usually. Dad said they were ugly fish, but tasty as heck. We'd all sit on upturned logs, roasting marshmallows so cheap they stuck to your fingers worse than gum. The stars above seemed like they were putting on a show just for us. But my favorite part? Caving. My dad had this thing for exploring the old mines scattered around the hills. Some were sealed off, but others, well, let's just say we didn't ask permission. He'd bring a couple flashlights, a cheap plastic helmet for me, and we would spend hours down in those tunnels. It was cool and damp, the air always smelling like wet stone and rust. I felt like Indiana Jones, minus the whip and, the giant boulders. Just a scrawny kid with dirt on his face and his old man showing him the ropes. Those summers, they shaped me. I didn't have, new Converse like the other kids at school. My backpack was duct taped and my lunch was wrapped in tin foil. No fancy boxes. But I had stories. Real ones. And when I grew up, well, I never really let go of that. College was a detour. Got a degree in environmental science because, hey, turns out loving the woods can be useful. Most of my classmates wanted to work for conservation groups or wear ties and argue about wetlands in a boardroom. Me? I just wanted to get back out here. And I did. Now, officially, I'm a park ranger. But I'm not the type who hands out trail maps or stands around sipping coffee by the station porch. I'm what they call a caver. That's right. I take people, mostly kids, into the caves near the park trails. We explore the tunnels. I teach them about bats and rock formations. I spook them with scary stories. And we all run like heck when we actually see a bat. At the end of the day, they all get a shiny badge that says Junior Caver or something like that. Their parents take pictures. The kids feel like explorers. And I get to pretend like I'm 10 years old again. It's a good gig. Honest work. Been doing it 5 summers now, and I know these caves like the back of my hand. Of course, it's not always fun and games. Some summers have been weirder than others. I've seen things down there that I don't talk about often. Strange things. Things that don't fit into my ranger manual or any biology textbook. But I'll get to those. My name is Ryan, and I'm a cave explorer. These are my stories. Now, cave exploring has always been strange. Heck, anything that has to do with the woods or dark, tight places is strange if you think about it. There's just something ancient about being in a cave. When you're down there, away from sunlight, no phone signal, no road noise, surrounded by rock on all sides. It does something to your brain. It's not like a haunted house or a horror movie. This is a different kind of fear. Older, like something deep in you remembers being afraid of places just like that. Some people can't handle it. They panic, start breathing fast, sweating. One kid threw up in his helmet once. It's not even the tight spaces that get him. It's the stillness, the silence. You feel like you've been dropped off the face of the earth. Me, well, I love it. I always have. I guess I'm one of the weird ones. I like the quiet. I like the cold air and the crunch of gravel under my boots. I like how your voice bounces off the walls in funny ways. I even like the smell. Kind of earthy, kind of damp. Reminds me of being a kid, when Dad and I would go crawling through the old mine shafts in the hills. Just me, him, and a cheap flashlight from the gas station. But even I have to admit, there are times when it gets too quiet, when the silence feels heavy, and sometimes when you're real deep inside the mountain, it feels like you're not alone. I've been leading these cave tours for a while now. 5 summers and counting. I've taken groups of kids into all kinds of caverns. Most are shallow, wide, easy to move around in. We keep it safe, we keep it light. Tell ghost stories, talk about stalactites, get them their little explorer badge like I said, and it's good fun. But not every summer is the same. Some summers are off. The first time I saw something I couldn't explain, it was back in 2009. I remember the year because it was hot as hell that season, and the caves were the only place that felt cold. I had a group of 10 kids, maybe 12. A mix of middle schoolers, mostly city kids. They got loud when they got nervous, which was fine by me. Better than crying. We were in this cave I'd explored 100 times. It had a little natural stone bridge about halfway through. Kind of a neat feature. Nothing dramatic, just a bump in the trail. We were almost across it when it gave out. I don't know if it was the heat, or the weight of the group, or maybe time just wore it down. But that section of the rock just snapped, and down we went. Not far, thankfully, maybe 6 or 7 feet. But one of the girls landed wrong. A couple of rocks slid down with us, and one of them pinned her leg. She screamed. Loud. Everyone else screamed too, which didn't help. My partner Josh was already on the radio before I even got to her. I kept her talking, kept her breathing slow. Asked her about her dog, her favorite TV show, stuff like that. She calmed down fast too. Tough kid. Help showed up fast. The whole team was trained for stuff like this. They had her out in under an hour. Her leg wasn't even broken, just bruised up bad. But while we waited, we were stuck down there, just me and her. The others moved out for safety. And it was then that I felt something. You ever feel like you're being watched? I know, it's a stupid thing to say. Everybody asks that. But that's what it felt like. Not just a feeling. I knew something was watching us. From the dark tunnel ahead, past where the light reached. And then I saw him. 2 small red points of light. Round, unmoving, just hanging there in the dark like a pair of coals. I didn't say anything, not to the girl. She didn't see it. and I made sure she didn't look that way. I told the team to speed up, told them I didn't like it down here. They must have thought I was just spooked from the fall. As soon as the girl was up and out, and they cleared the area, I told them I needed to double check something, and I went back in alone. Now I know what you're thinking. That was dumb. But I wasn't thinking straight. I thought maybe it was a raccoon or an owl, or worse, some stupid teenager with a flashlight trying to mess with me. We get pranksters like that every now and then. So I went back down in the tunnel, past where the bridge had been, past where we landed. And I kept going. The cave narrowed quick. I had to duck, then crouch, then finally get down on my belly and crawl. Eventually, the tunnel opened up again. There was a wide space, round and low, with a little slope of rubble in the back. In the far corner, hunched over something furry, was a thing. I don't even know what to call it. It was pale, like it hadn't seen the sun in 100 years. Real skinny, but strong looking. The legs bent wrong. Its back was arched, like it'd been crawling for too long. Its head moved in little jerks, kind of like a bird. It was chewing on a dead skunk. I watched it tear off a piece with these sharp little teeth, and I felt something in me scream to get out. But I didn't move. Not until it lifted its head and looked toward me. I didn't wait for anything more. I backed out the way I came, fast. When I got to the bridge, or what was left of it, I took out my knife and cut the ropes I'd used to brace the edge. Let the whole thing fall in. When I got back to the station, I told the team animals had gotten into that section. Said it wasn't safe anymore. Too unstable. Too risky. We marked it off on the map and told future groups to steer clear. I never mentioned what I really saw, and I never went back. You know, my mom used to say something when I was little, back when Dad and I would go crawling through the mines on the weekends. She'd stand by the porch with her arms crossed, shaking her head like she knew something we didn't. She'd say, "You think you're all alone in there? Think again." Back then, I thought you just meant bears. Maybe bats. Now I am not so sure. There are strange things that live in these caves. Now all rangers see things. Maybe not right away, but give it time. Especially us cavers. We spend more hours underground than above it some weeks. And the things we come across, they don't always make sense. Every one of us has a story we keep off the books. Stuff that doesn't make it into the welcome packet or the park website. Some of it's harmless, weird, but harmless. Some of it sticks with you. The next one I've got is about cave water. Simple stuff, really. But I've learned a long time ago, nothing in these caves is ever just what it seems. When I was a trainee, most of my time was spent hauling gear, holding flashlights, and trying not to screw anything up. That's the real start of it. If you want to know how someone becomes a proper caver, it's not glamorous. You don't show up with a headlamp and a vest and suddenly get handed a badge and a whistle. You put in hours, weeks, following the older guys around like a shadow, learning what to touch and what not to. What clay looks like when it's ready to collapse. How to read airflow off a dead end. And then there's the scientific work. That's the part most people outside the field don't think about. People hear caver and picture some crazy guy with ropes and a machete. But real caving, our kind, it's controlled, precise. We map, we log formations, we take samples. Some folks do biology work, others focus on water movement, structural stability, minerals, bat populations, that sort of thing. If you're in the field full time, odds are you've got a degree, maybe two. It's not all glory and dirt. Back then, the head of our training team was this guy named Jackson. Big guy, loud, always talking like he was on camera. He wore too much Axe body spray, to the point where it clung to the insides of the damn helmets. I think he thought it made him cool. I was a few years younger, fresh out of school and eager to prove myself, so I kept my mouth shut about it. At the time, I assumed everyone around me was experienced. You know how it is when you're new. You figure anyone with gear and a clipboard must know what they're doing. Only took me a few hours to realize I'd been very wrong. We went out to a cave called Split Jaw. Locals named it that because of the jagged entrance. It's not a tourist site, more of a study location. Remote, unlit, the kind of place where GPS stops working halfway through the hike in. Our objective was simple. Track moisture deposits along a fault line that ran down the center of the second chamber. Seemed easy enough. We got inside fine. Helmets on, pack secured. First mile or so was the usual. Tight passage, small pools, chalk markings from past teams. But then we hit the chute. It was about 40 feet down, angled just steep enough to make you second guess yourself. The whole thing was caked in thick, wet clay, like someone had taken a hose to a water slide. Going down was easy. You just sat and let gravity take care of it. But I remember looking back up once I was at the bottom and thinking, how the hell are we getting out of here? No ropes, no spikes, nothing to grab onto. Should we rig something? I asked. Jackson just grinned. We'll figure it out when we get there. That was the first time my gut twisted a little. Later on, we came to the river. It cut straight through the chamber like someone had dropped a saw blade through the rock. The walls on either side were about 8 feet high, smooth, with barely any holes. The water itself wasn't that wide, maybe 10, 12 feet across. But it was moving fast, waist deep and cold as hell. Jackson stood at the edge, peering down into the water like he was trying to guess its mood. You think it's deep? I asked. He smirked. Only one way to find out. I gave him a look. Yeah, it's not really science, I said. Sure it is. Field testing, he said, tightening the straps on his pack. You, bringing a rope this time, or? Jackson grinned. Where's the fun in ropes? I rolled my eyes. Okay, seriously, man, the current's moving. We screw this up, we're not climbing out of here. He stepped in without answering. Jackson was the first in. I went next. The current hit me like a truck. I nearly lost my footing twice before I got to the other side. Climbing the opposite wall took everything I had. I scraped my forearms raw, trying to pull myself up on wet rock, cursing under my breath the whole time. But what happened next made all that feel like nothing. Jackson was about halfway across when he stopped moving. Just stopped, like he'd hit something under the surface. Then he lurched forward and went under. Not slept. Pulled. Everyone panicked. One guy dropped his pack, another jumped in. Took 3 of us to drag Jackson back up. The water fought us the whole way, like it didn't want to let him go. When we got him up, he was screaming so loud I couldn't think. Just this raw, horrible sound. His leg was torn up, deep red gashes down his calf and thigh, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was his foot. The toes were gone. Gone, like something had bitten straight through the boot and the flesh underneath. Clean. There was no blood in the water when he went under. No warning. No flash of anything moving. Just him. And then pain. We wrapped his leg in a shirt and used spare rope as a tourniquet. It wasn't clean, but it was enough to get him moving. We abandoned the mission, obviously, left some gear behind, carried Jackson out inch by inch. When we got to the chute again, it was exactly as bad as I'd imagined. The clay turned every step into a fight. I clawed my way up with my nails, digging into dirt and slick rock, pulling myself one miserable foot at a time. At the top, I looked down and realized just how stupid we'd been. We filed an incident report when we got back. Standard procedure. I put in everything I saw. The pull, the wounds, the bite. I left out the part where I was afraid to go near water for weeks after. I figured that wasn't helpful. Jackson quit the next week, right after getting out of the hospital. Never came back to the station, never answered my text. I think part of him wanted to pretend it never happened. But I remember. I remember the sound of him screaming, the look on his face when he saw his foot, the strange silence from the rest of the team after we made it topside. Because here's the thing. Piranhas don't live in caves. And no rock in that water was sharp enough to bite a man's toes clean off. I still think about that river. About what could have been under there. We didn't go back. Nobody wanted to. Official word was hazardous conditions. But that's just paperwork. The truth is, something was in that water. Something strong. Something fast. And something quiet. Jackson was lucky in a way. He made it out, and now he works in a fancy boardroom far away from this place. And if you ask around the ranger station, the ones who've been here long enough, you'll notice none of us go back there. I was about half a mile in, working on bat collection, when the call came through. The job that day was simple. Monitor a cluster of roosting bats near an old drip line. I had my sample kit out, one glove on, fiddling with a set of tubes that didn't want to seal right. I was already annoyed, and my radio crackled right when I finally got the thing to sit straight. "Ryan, come in. We've got a situation." It was Linda, a fellow ranger who usually got stuck filing reports by the station. I clicked the receiver. "Go ahead." "Girl's missing. Summer group. Name's Lacey. Yellow shirt," she said. I paused, squinting through the low light. "Yellow shirt?" "Should be obvious. Last visual had her headed your direction, copy," she said. "Copy. I'll start the sweep." I packed up the gear in a rush. Now, finding kids isn't like tracking adults. You don't look for footprints or call out names over and over like in the movies. Kids go where they feel small, where they can hide. You've got to think like one. I start small and move out. Always. It's counterintuitive. Most people think you search the big caverns first. Open areas, louder echo, easier to move through. But I've found that kids don't like big empty places. They like crawl spaces. Spaces they can wedge into, curl up, feel surrounded, comforted. It's how their brains work when they're scared. So I checked the tighter offshoots first. Cracks along the wall, dead-end tunnels, anything low and narrow. Called her name once or twice, quiet-like. Didn't want to spook her. Or anything else. After about 20 minutes, I heard the faint trickle of water. That was enough to narrow it down. On this side of the trail, there's a small shaft not far from a slow-drip tunnel. Not mapped anymore. Barely wide enough to squeeze through if you've had a big breakfast. I got on my hands and knees and shined my light into it. There she was. Lacey. Yellow shirt. Curled up with her knees pulled to her chest, maybe 10 or 11 years old. Wide-eyed but calm. Not crying, not shaking. Just quiet. Lacey, hey, you mind coming out here with me? I said, keeping my voice steady. She nodded and held up her arms like she already knew I'd carry her. I held on to her and crawled out backward. It took a few extra breaths to get upright again, but we were out in no time. She held onto my shoulder like a backpack strap the whole way back. Didn't say much. Later, after she'd had some water and the other kids had stopped crowding her, I sat with her by the gear bench. You okay? She nodded. I wasn't scared. Well, you did great. Real smart staying put. Makes it easier for us to find you. She looked at me, then glanced down at her shoes. You weren't the first to find me. I blinked. What do you mean? There was a man before you got here. I sat up straighter. A man? She nodded. He had a big coat and a hard hat and a long beard. He said you'd come to get me. I stared at her for a long second. You're sure? She looked me dead in the eyes. He said his name was Henry. Now, there hasn't been a mining team in these mountains since the 70s. Before the park got its official status, this whole range was a network of old claims and tunnels, most of them long since sealed or collapsed. I helped seal some of them myself. No access, no light, no reason for anyone to be down there. When I got back to the station that night, I went straight to my supervisor's office. His name's Mitch. Old-timer. Been here longer than the paint on the walls. I asked him if he knew anything about a miner named Henry. He didn't even blink. You saw Henry? I paused. No, one of the kids did. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Yeah, that sounds like him. Who is he? I asked. Mitch looked toward the window, like he needed to picture it. Back when they were still digging for gold out here, there was a collapse. About 9 men got buried in the shaft near Saddle Ridge. Only 4 made it out. One of them was Henry. Henry something. Nobody remembers his last name, just that he was the foreman. Real serious guy. Carried a pickaxe everywhere, even above ground. Story goes, he died trying to dig out the others. Refused to leave until he got everyone out. Didn't make it. Mitch explained. I sat there trying to process it. So you're telling me a ghost helped this kid? Mitch gave a small shrug. Well, he's not the kind that scares folk. He's quiet. Stays out of sight unless he's got a reason. But yes, some of the rangers believe in him, especially the older ones. We've had stories like this before. How many? I asked. Mitch leaned forward. Well, every couple years, Lost kid, found safe, usually by water. They always say the same thing. Hard hat, big beard, didn't talk much. I didn't know what to say. Years passed after that. Lacey's group came and went. But it wasn't the last time something like that happened. 8 times out of 10, when a kid goes missing on that side of the range, I find them by water. Same exact spot I found her. Sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes a few. But they're always okay. A little shaken, but fine. And they always mention the man in the hard hat. So now, when kids get lost and we're out searching, I tell the rookies not to worry too much if we're in Henry's territory. I tell them to keep calm, stick to the paths, look for the stream. And when I find the kid, I ask them what happened. Most of the time, they say, a man helped me. And I know who they mean. Sometimes I leave coffee and a piece of bread by the old collapsed shaft near Saddle Ridge. Nothing big, just a thanks. I don't know if it matters. I don't expect anything in return, but it feels right. Over the years, I have seen some strange things in these caves. Good things, terrible things. Things that'll make you think twice before cracking a joke about ghosts. Things that make you double-check your flashlight, even when it's fully charged. I've seen a lot in these caves. Some of it helpful, some of it dangerous. Most of it very hard to explain. I've learned that kids don't wander far, but they don't always go where you'd expect. That the smallest spaces are where you look first. The water inside a cave is never just water, and that you always bring rope, even if you think you don't need it. I've learned there are animals that don't show up in any guidebooks, injuries that can't be blamed on rocks, sounds that aren't wind, no matter how much people want them to be. I don't have theories. I'm not that kind of guy. But I pay attention. You work a job like this long enough, and you stop looking for explanations. You just learn how to work around the things that don't make sense. Well, they gave me a promotion last fall. Field lead. Fancy title. Slightly bigger paycheck. Still the same dirt under my nails. The best part, I upgraded from beef jerky to bacon for breakfast. Honest to God, pan-fried bacon. That alone was worth the years I put in. I still keep a pack of jerky in the glove box, out of habit, but it doesn't hit the same now that I have tasted victory. Things have changed a bit since my trainee days. I don't get sent crawling through mudslides unless I volunteer, which, unfortunately for me, I still do more often than I should. But I've got more say in what I take on now. More freedom in the field. I get to run my own research schedule during the off-season, which means no school groups until the summer rolls back around. Just me, the rocks, and the long list of data points the lab wants me to collect. Don't get me wrong, I miss the kids. Nothing beats the look on their faces the first time they step into a cavern and realize how big and quiet the underground world really is. But these winter months, they've been peaceful, quiet. There's a rhythm to field work. Wake up early, gear up, hike out, take your samples, document, get back before dark, repeat. I don't mind the routine. There's always a project going on. Water quality in the limestone runoffs, bat population tracking, mineral shifts, fungal growth studies. Stuff that sounds boring unless you're the one holding the flashlight and seeing it real up close. Sometimes I send the samples back in padded coolers. Sometimes I haul them out on foot. Either way, it keeps me moving. And that's the kind of life I like. And yeah, I still bring Henry his coffee. Not every week, but often enough. Sometimes I leave it just outside the collapsed shaft with a folded napkin and a square of bread. Sometimes it's a paper cup on a warm rock ledge. Nobody touches it, not even the animals. But the cup is always empty when I come back. The way I see it, Henry is a part of this place, same as the rest of us. Only difference is, he's got more history in his bones. Now, if you ever think about becoming a ranger, especially a cave explorer, you'd better know what you're signing up for. You'll spend a lot of time cold, wet, sore, and questioning your life choices. You'll get used to eating granola bars at 3 a.m. and waking up with your face half frozen to your sleeve. You'll learn to walk without making noise, to crawl without panic, to know the difference between a rock shift and something else moving in the dark. You'll also see things most people never do. Light filtering through cords like a lantern, bats swirling overhead in perfect silence, pools so still they look like glass. And yes, sometimes things you can't quite explain. There are strange things that live in these parts. I've said it before and I will say it again. Some things hide in the cracks and the cold and the silence. Stranger still are the people who stick around, the ones who see things and keep coming back, the ones who learn to live alongside the unexplainable and walk the same routes like they're just part of the terrain. Most folks would run or laugh it off or pretend it never happened. We don't. We get up the next day and go back in because that's the job. And if you ask me, it's a job worth doing. There's something about being the person who helps a kid out of a crawl space, who gets a call, drops everything, and ends the day with everyone accounted for, who knows the tunnels well enough to make it back without markers. Yeah, some days are harder than others. Some weeks stretch longer than they should. But when it's all said and done and you walk out of the cave, you get to stand up straight again, peel off your gloves, and look up. And when you do, you get a sky full of real stars. That's the part no one tells you about. Not the weirdness, not the bruises, not even the scary stories. It's the stars. The moment when you come back to the surface, blink a few times, and see the whole damn sky waiting for you. That's what makes it worth it. That and the bacon. But seriously, if you ever do take the job, always bring extra rope. My name's Ethan. I'm 34 and I work in sewer maintenance for this small town. You wouldn't think 34 is all that old, because it's not. Not really. But here in Dry Creek, sure feels like it. The teenagers at the cinema, I mean like I don't belong, even though I've been going to Friday night movies since before most of them were born. I usually sit alone, second row from the back, seat 6. I don't eat popcorn anymore. Instead, I sip on a Coke and watch whatever's playing, usually horror or action. At work, they still call me Greenie. I started 5 years ago, which makes me newer than most, but not new. See, around here, once you're something, you stay that something. Folks remember. I've heard men older than me still get called kid at the diner. Well, I work the sewers now. Maintenance mostly. It's not glamorous, but it's work. My folks grew corn. Their folks did too. Miles of stalks, gold as sunset, swaying in fields under big blue skies. But that was before the rain stopped coming regularly. You don't notice drought all at once. It creeps in. One dry season, then another. Then you blink, and the dust's thicker than your memories. Folks started selling. Some moved out. Others, like us, stuck around and tried to find other work. That's when the watermelon company showed up. Big trucks, bigger promises. They bought the land cheap, said they were building a factory. Good jobs, clean energy, economic rebirth. Words like that. People smiled through the papers. I was 13 when they broke ground on the hill above Lake Florence. Lake Florence used to be the place families would go for camping, fishing, swimming, firecrackers on the 4th. Now it's fenced off, and nobody talks much about what happened to the fish. The water looks different too, but folks don't like to mention that either. Just got runoff, they say. Anyway, the company poured money into a goodwill project after that. Said they'd build us a better sewer system. Keep the infrastructure strong, safe. Problem is, it was rushed. Cheap parts, quick labor. Stuff breaks a lot. Which is how I got a job in the first place. They were always hiring maintenance. It's funny, I never thought I'd be the first in my family to not work the land. There's still a rusted tractor in our barn back home. Broken belt hanging off it like a snakeskin. I leave it there, out of respect, I guess. My dad used to sit on that thing every morning like it was a church pew. My mom lives 2 towns over now, with her sister. She said the air's easier to breathe up there. I guess she means the people. And as for me, I stayed. Got this job. Bought a trailer just outside town, next to an old pecan grove that's more sticks than trees these days. I keep it clean, fix what breaks. Got a little dog named Marble. She's part terrier, part something scrappy and mean, but she is loyal. Sleeps next to my boots every night. Likes to bark at wind for some reason. I wake up at 6. Drink coffee with powdered creamer. Drive into town in my truck, a red 99 Ranger with a busted stereo and 2 mismatched mirrors. I park by the maintenance shed behind City Hall. I check the calls for the day. Most of them are routine. Blockages from roots, broken valves, rats chewing the insulation off wires. You ever been down in a sewer? It's not what people think. It's not always disgusting, though it can be. Mostly it's quiet. Cold, even in summer. Sometimes I like it down there. It's the only place where nobody bothers you. No phones, no neighbors, no, looks. Now the company gave us all these laminated maps when we started. Said the lines were designed to be modern, high efficiency, flood resistant, but things don't match up anymore. Some tunnels go farther than they should. Some dead ends aren't. I once found a room down there. Concrete walls, no doors, no pipes, just there. They pay decent, enough to keep gas in the truck and Marble fed. Enough to buy a movie ticket on Friday. The good, simple kind of life. Sometimes I sit on my trailer steps at night, drink a beer, and stare up at the hill where the watermelon factory hums. You can see the lights, even from here. Bright white, like hospital lights, and always on. The building's a big square thing with no windows. Trucks go in, trucks go out. That's about it. I've never been inside, though I've worked the main lines right beneath it. The smell, it changes there. Some of the other guys say weird things happen sometimes. Lights go out. Machines stalling. One guy, he swore he heard voices through the pipes. I didn't put much stock in that. pipes make noise. They're pipes. You work down there long enough, your brain starts inventing company. Still, there's something about this town. Something that changed after the rain left. Or maybe it changed before, and we just didn't see it till we were dry and desperate. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. I'd like to ramble. This is a story about what happened to me, about the strangest job I ever pulled, and about a day I can't forget, even if I want to. Let me start at the beginning. The beginning of that day. I met Oscar about 3 months into the job. They called him my mentor, but it was more like being partnered with a cranky uncle. This man is something else. Oscar had a face like dry leather. It always smelled like cigarettes, motor oil, and sour candy. He wore this frayed old denim jacket, even in July, and he had this look in his eyes like he'd seen a lot of things he wasn't quite done thinking about. He was a hard worker, though. Best I ever met. Knew every bolt, every turn in the system. He'd been doing maintenance work long before the watermelon company came around. He didn't like them much, though. Said those city men smiled too wide and talked too fast. Some days, Oscar would ramble on about nonsense, like how raccoons were government spies, or how if you ate too many carrots, your fingernails turned see-through. But then he'd suddenly turn serious and give you advice that stuck with you forever. Like how the soft parts of the sewer near the eastern edge weren't stable. Or how always bringing a honey bun in your lunch kept your blood sugar from crashing during long shifts. Yeah, you eat sugar when you're deep in. Your brain will thank you. Sewers drain more than water, you know, he'd say. I nodded the first time he said that. Not sure what the hell he was talking about, but I did pack a honey bun after that. Oscar showed me how to do the morning safety checks. He taught me how to listen for strain in a pipe before it burst, how to measure heat against the wall to check for leaks behind it, and which boots didn't soak through after 5 hours in standing water. He wasn't the easiest man to like, but once you did, it stuck. He had a way of talking that swung like a rusty gate between hard truth and complete nonsense. But once you were around him long enough, you started to pick out the rhythm of it. There was a wisdom buried in the madness, and patience under all that scowl. We'd spend hours walking through tunnels, mapping routes and clearing clogs, barely saying a word. Then out of nowhere, he'd hit me with something like, "You ever notice how the rats down here, they act like they own the damn place?" And I would damn near choke, laughing. That's just how it was with Oscar. We worked together long enough that the silence became comfortable. Our Thursdays became tradition. Sitting behind the maintenance shed on old buckets, nursing cheap beer and playing rummy. I never beat him fair. He always had a trick up his sleeve. He wore the scratched up G-Shock on his wrist, one of those thick rubbery ones built to survive a war. I asked him about it once. "Nice watch," I said, flicking a card down. Oscar glanced at it like he'd forgotten he still had it on. "Oh, yeah, gift from my boy. Lives up in Atlanta now." "You gonna put it up for a gamble?" I asked. "What? No, would never part with it. Not unless it got pried off my bones," he answered. I knew he meant it, but I still smiled and asked, "You get that sentimental about everything?" He chuckled. "Maybe, I mean, you ain't having kids, it makes you soft." There was a pause after that. Just the sounds of cards shuffling and marble barking at the wind. Then out of nowhere, I said, "Hey, you ever think it's weird the watermelon company doesn't sell watermelons? I mean, not even a sticker. Oscar didn't even look up. Hell, I'd probably never even seen a watermelon. They probably think it's a flavor of gum. What do you think they do in that place? I asked. Oh, I don't know, something secret. Something quiet. That's when the raccoons show up. The raccoons? I asked. He nodded, dead serious. Government spies. I've said it before. You think they're digging through trash for scraps? They're not. They're downloading data through their whiskers. I just stared at him. Right, yeah, of course, and pigeons or drones, huh? Oscar frowned. That's ridiculous. Oscar felt like family. Not the kind you see on holidays. More like the kind you find in the dirt. The kind that shows up when your boots are full of sewer water and the world's gone quiet. He was like a cranky uncle you never knew you needed. Someone who wouldn't let you fall, but sure as hell wouldn't coddle you either. Small towns are like that. We don't use big words for how we feel, but we build things in the space between silence and work. In time, Oscar started reminding me of my dad. Not because they looked alike, but because they both carried that same kind of quiet weight. That no-nonsense, get-it-done kind of attitude. And just like my dad, Oscar would get all bashful anytime someone said something kind about him. Shrug it off. Grumble. Change the subject. Then came the job. They told us during the morning meeting there'd been a collapse somewhere deep in the interior system. One of the older tunnels, unused, sealed off for years. The watermelon company sent word that the collapse had opened up something new, some chamber or corridor further down. They didn't give details, just said they wanted it scouted. Probably to use for storage, or maybe they wanted to dig. This town had gold rush history back in the 1800s. Folks found flakes in the hills, and the whole county went mad with shovels and dynamite. Most of it was gone now, mined out and forgotten, but old habits die slow. Some of the higher-ups at the company were always sniffing around for ways to turn a buck. Oscar and I were chosen for the job. Recon only. Go down, take notes, snap a few photos, and report what we saw. Standard stuff, just further out than usual. But that morning, I woke up feeling rough. I had the worst migraine of my life. I sat on the edge of my bed for an hour, marble whining at my feet. My head fogged over. I called it in, told him I couldn't make it. Oscar didn't say much when he heard, just grunted over the phone and said, "Hey, no, it's all right. Yeah, you stay at home. I'll do it solo." I offered to make it up to him. Said I'd cover his next weekend shift. Bring beer Thursday and we'll call it even, huh? He replied. And that was the last conversation we ever had. Oscar didn't come back that day. At first, people made up excuses for him. Maybe he'd taken the long way around. Maybe he dropped his radio and was hiking back to the surface. You'd be surprised how much of that kind of wishful thinking happens when folks don't want to believe something's gone very wrong. But by sundown, it started sinking in. They sent a team down into the shaft, 2 guys from a different crew, and one of the watermelon company safety officers. They had flashlights, ropes, maps. They went down and stayed a few hours, then came back up looking pale and quiet. Didn't say much, only that they didn't find anything. No tools, no footprints, no Oscar. After that, the panic started. but not the kind that comes from losing a friend. The company's higher-ups weren't worried about Oscar the man. They were worried about headlines. Maintenance worker lost in tunnel collapse wasn't a good look, especially not for a corporation trying to paint itself as clean and modern. You could feel it in their voices, in the way they kept saying incident instead of disappearance. Small-town people hate attention. We like our problems local. But the story still spread. You couldn't keep something like that quiet in a place like Dry Creek. People whispered about it in the pews at church and passed notes during bingo night. Some said Oscar had found something down there, something he wasn't supposed to. Others just shook their heads and said it was a tragedy, plain and simple. But no one believed the company's version of things. Not really. They ruled it an accident, said the ground had shifted, that Oscar must have fallen and gotten trapped. No body was recovered. The funeral came quick, bare bones, quiet. They laid out one of his old uniforms at the front of the chapel and framed a photo from back in his younger days. That's when I met his son, the one staying in Atlanta with a big tech job. Showed up in a gray suit, tied too tight, hands fidgeting in his pockets. He looked around like he didn't quite remember the place. We stood outside afterward, each holding a black coffee from the church kitchen. It tasted burnt. He ever talk about me? The son asked, eyes on the gravel. Every day, I replied. He smiled. The kind of smile you wear when you don't want to cry in public. We didn't talk much more after that. He shook my hand, thanked me, then got into his rental and drove away down the dirt road. The next morning I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the shaft, about how something didn't feel right about the whole thing. Oscar was careful, smarter than people gave him credit for. He wouldn't just disappear like that. And if he did, if something did happen down there, then something was being kept from the rest of us. By noon, I was driving out to the site. The shaft had a line of faded caution tape across it, strung between two traffic cones. That was the company's idea of security. No one watching, no cameras, just a few warning signs and the assumption nobody would poke around. I stood at the edge, boots scraping the dirt. The shaft yawned beneath me, deep and dark and silent. I squinted down, not really expecting to see anything. But something caught my eye, just a shape, tucked into the debris on the lower slope. I climbed down before I could talk myself out of it. My foot slipped once on a loose rock, and I caught myself hard on the wall. The smell hit me next. Damp, sour, like something had been left too long in the sun. I kept going. Halfway down, I saw it. A hand. It was sticking out from under a chunk of broken concrete and torn metal. Gray skin, dirt-packed fingernails. But it wasn't just the hand. It was the thing on the wrist. A G-Shock watch, scratched and worn. Same one I had seen 100 times. For a second, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But it was real. The second hand still ticked, slow and steady, like it didn't care the man wearing it hadn't moved in weeks. I reached down and pried it loose. The fingers crunched a little when I shifted the wrist. I didn't look at the face. Couldn't. I just took the watch and shoved it into my jacket pocket. Then I scrambled back up the shaft, kicking roots and choking on dust. I sat in the truck afterward, staring at the dashboard. When I got home, I laid the watch on the kitchen table and just stared at it. The numbers glowed in the dark. I reported what I found, sent an email to the site supervisor, called the main office, left voicemails, gave coordinates. No one called back. Not a single word. I waited, and nothing. And that's when I knew if I wanted answers, I wasn't going to get them from some corporate rep in a button-down shirt. So I packed my flashlight, tools, backup batteries, laced up a pair of boots Oscar had given me, ones that didn't soak through. I tucked the G-Shock into my shirt pocket. I went down the next morning before the sun had fully risen. I geared up like I would for any other recon job. Flashlight, backup batteries, tool belt, gloves, a honey bun in my jacket pocket, just like Oscar told me, and his old G-Shock ticking steady from my wrist. The shaft was quiet when I got there. No sounds but my own boots scraping against the concrete. I climbed down softly, flashlight leading the way. The old tunnels were damp, as expected, but something felt off. It wasn't just the smell of the stale air, it was something else. No rats. Now, let me say this clear. Rats and sewers go together. That's a fact. Like how sunflowers are yellow, or how everybody hates fruitcakes on Christmas. Rats live down here. You see them, hear them, smell them. They scurry, scratch, knock over bottles. I'd spent years doing this job and never had a shift where I didn't come across at least one. But this time, nothing. Not even a squeak. Just empty pipes and puddles. I kept walking, flashlight beam jittering as my boots echoed with every step. My breath was loud in my own ears, and my hands gripped the light tighter the deeper I went. Half an hour passed, then a full hour, and that's when I found them. Bones. Not piles, just scattered, like breadcrumbs dropped by something that didn't care to clean up. They were fresh, too, still white. No rot, no signs of chewing or gnawing. I crouched down beside one and held my light to it. A rat's skull, clean and sharp-edged. Next was a skunk, its stripes still visible on the thin layer of stretched skin that hadn't fallen away yet. Then a raccoon, its tiny hands curled like it died reaching for something. I stood slowly and backed away. I wasn't a nature expert, but I'd seen enough roadkill and dead livestock to know how things were supposed to break down. These weren't decomposing right. And no gator did this. Gators don't leave bones like that. They bite, roll, swallow whole. They don't strip a creature clean like it's been picked apart with fingers. Plus, there wasn't enough water down here. Not deep enough, not wide enough. The ground was smooth, still. I kept going, deeper towards the coordinates where Oscar was last sent. The path dipped lower than I expected, like the whole tunnel was sloping towards something below. Eventually, the old brick and metal ended. I stepped through a gap in the wall, crouching slightly to fit. My boots met different ground. It wasn't concrete anymore. It was stone. Carved, smooth stone. It looked like a cave.
The walls curved and coiled like something had dug it out with huge claws, or with machines built for scraping and boring. Every inch of the place was polished. No jagged bits, no broken rock. Just long, sweeping tunnels stretching in directions I couldn't guess. Like badger moles, I thought. Like something that didn't want to be seen from the surface had been digging for a long time. My flashlight caught strange grooves in the walls, lines that moved like veins, or like something had slid across them 1,000 times and worn the stone down. The smell changed too. What was supposed to be the smell of sewage turned into something that smelled like burnt iron. And then I heard it. A dragging sound. A slow, wet pull, like something large was sliding across the stone just out of sight. I turned off my light, stepped behind a wide rock that jutted out from the wall, and crouched low. Then I saw it. It slithered into view from the far end of the tunnel, pulling itself forward on long, thick arms. It looked like a human fetus. Huge. Wrong. Its head was large and smooth, like a balloon stretched too tight. But it had a face. Eyes, though they didn't blink. A nose that didn't twitch. A mouth that... The mouth stretched open wide, like it could swallow a full-grown man. The jaw unhinged like rubber, skin pulling back to show a dark, endless maw. It mumbled as it moved, words I could barely hear. But one word came through over and over. Hungry. I crouched behind the rock and kept my flashlight off. The creature was just around the bend, maybe 10 feet away, maybe less. I could hear it dragging itself forward, slow and steady. Every few seconds, it would stop and mumble the same word. Hungry. I stayed where I was. My knees were pressed into the stone. My back hurt from holding still so long, but I did not move. I didn't even shift my weight. I thought about running. Really thought about it. If I left now, quickly and quietly, I could get out. I knew the tunnel layout. I had the map in my head. I could find my way back to the surface. Maybe no one would ever know I came this far. I could tell the company the collapse blocked something off. Blame it on gas. Say I smelled something weird and turned around. It would be easy. Safe. But the idea didn't sit right. I tried to picture myself in my trailer that night, feeding marble, sitting on the steps, drinking a beer, watching the hill where the factory lights stay on all night, pretending nothing had happened, pretending Oscar hadn't gone down here because I called out sick. No matter how I looked at it, I knew I wouldn't sleep. This town had never asked much of me. It let me stay when I had nowhere to go. It let me work, gave me space. But it had rules. Old ones. Quiet ones. If you see something broken, you fix it. You help your neighbors, even if sometimes you really don't like them. You give to charity, even if it's just a nickel and some black coffee. Most of all, you never turn your back when you see something wrong. Oscar sure wouldn't have. He taught me how to listen for pipe strain, how to measure tunnel depth by echo, how to pick boots that wouldn't soak through. He'd shown me the slow, careful way to move through these sewers. He didn't deserve to end up as a hand with a watch poking out of a pile of rocks. I reached into my jacket. My fingers touched cold metal. The emergency flare, still sealed. I slid it into my palm and gripped it tight. I remembered something else he said, maybe a year into the job. We were sitting behind the maintenance shed drinking warm beer. He pointed at the sky and said, there's gas pockets in the old tunnels, low areas. I'll never tell you where, but you'll smell them. You smell something sharp, don't light a cigarette. And if something ever goes wrong, well, just remember they built this place to burn if it had to. I'd smelled gas 20 minutes ago. Sharp and dry. Came out of a cracked pipe by a collapsed section. Old metal. Unsealed, no airflow. It was still there. I shifted my weight slowly and stood up behind the rock. My flashlight was still clipped to my belt. The thing was farther down the tunnel now, still muttering, still dragging itself forward like it didn't have bones. It didn't see me. I moved. I walked fast but quiet, keeping my steps even. I didn't turn around. The cracked pipe was still leaking. The smell was stronger now. The air felt wrong. I crouched beside it and twisted the valve once more. A loud hiss filled the tunnel. The last thing I remember was stepping back, pulling the cap off the flare as the creature shuffled towards me. And then everything went black. They found me face down in a drainage pool a few miles north of town. Someone from one of the pump stations saw something bobbing near the grate and called it in. First they thought I was dead. My shirt was half burned, and my face was caked in ash. One of the paramedics told me later my eyes were open, just staring. I don't remember that part. I remember fire, then rock, then black. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed, ribs taped tight, skin scrubbed raw. Marble was curled at my feet, and for a while, that was all that mattered. A week passed before the watermelon company came knocking. They sent 3 suits, not local guys. One had a clipboard, the other 2 just sat and watched. They asked me questions, what I saw, what I was doing down there, why I went past the marked zone, how the explosion started. I listened, drank the bad hospital coffee they brought, and said, I don't remember. They asked again, this time quieter, one at a time. They offered hazard pay, then bonus pay, then legal immunity if I'd just walk them through my shift that day. I shrugged, told them I'd been sick, said I must have slipped and hit my head. They didn't buy it, but they couldn't prove anything either. They didn't fire me. Maybe they thought I was a hero. Maybe they wanted to keep me close. Or maybe, just maybe, they already knew what was down there. Oscar used to joke about that. He told me they've got secrets in those tunnels, that some things are buried for a reason. I used to roll my eyes. Now I think he was right. The company sealed off the collapsed section, said it was unstable, danger to workers, internal memo only. Town never heard a word about it. They replaced the access door with a steel plate and a fresh padlock. But I don't think that's what kept them up at night. I think they were scared of what almost got out. They wired me a hazard bonus 3 times bigger than my annual salary. I spent exactly $32 of it. Bought marble, the good kibble, the kind that comes in shiny bags with too many vowels in the name. She licked the bowl clean and wagged her tail so hard she knocked it over afterward. I didn't spend a dime on anything else. Just kept the money sitting in the bank untouched. People in town started whispering, of course. Said I must have seen something. That I came back different. Someone at the diner asked if I found gold down there. I told them the truth. Nope, no gold. Nothing worth finding. But I still have Oscar's watch. I wear it on my off days now, when I walk marble around the grove and the air gets real still. I check the time even when I don't need to. Still works fine. Still ticking like it always did. I still work the sewers. They offered me a desk job upstate. I said no. Told them I like it down there. That part was true. The tunnels are quiet, familiar. I know them better than I know most people. They don't lie to you. Not really. If a pipe burst, it burst. If something's leaking, you hear it. And if you pay attention, they don't surprise you much. But I keep a few new rules now. I never go deeper than I have to. I always bring a second flare just in case. And I listen for the rats to know they're there. Simple as that. This is the first time I've talked about what I saw. And if you've made it this far, and you're one of those people who's curious about things, about dark places, forgotten paths, mysteries people don't talk about, then maybe this story's for you. Maybe you're the kind of person who walks past a locked door and wonders what's behind it. Maybe you've looked down a manhole cover and thought about climbing in. Don't. But if you ever do, if something drags you into a place that's older than maps and stranger than dirt, bring a lighter and a honey bun just in case. You're gonna need 'em. My name's Fred. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a DJ at a college radio station that's been running since the 70s. I also teach part-time. Communications department. I show the students how to hold a camera without shaking, how to angle the light so it doesn't bounce off your forehead, how to speak into a mic like it matters. Most of them are still figuring out how to sit up straight. You'd be surprised how many people forget their posture the second a camera's on them. I'm not full-time faculty or anything fancy. I don't wear a tie. I wear jeans and a flannel shirt most days. And if it's cold, I throw on a zip hoodie with the station's old logo across the back. A sort of disco ball with headphones. The kids think it's retro. It's not. It's just old. By day, I babysit undergrads with cameras. By night, I play 70s disco at 2 in the morning from a dusty booth with faded carpet and a wall of old soundboards. And I mean old. Some of the sliders have tape labels from DJs who are probably grandfathers now.
There's one board that still says, "Do not touch this knob, Jerry," in red Sharpie. Nobody knows who Jerry is. The board still works, mostly. I didn't plan on ending up here. It started as a joke, really. After college, there's this weird limbo time where you're too old to be a student, but not quite settled into being a grown-up. You take odd jobs, weird gigs, things that don't look good on a resume, but pay just enough to keep your lights on. This was one of those jobs. I figured I'd run the station for a semester, maybe 2, while I figured out what I actually wanted to do. And that was 4 years ago. Now, I've got keys to 3 different rooms in the media building, my own parking space, even though it's technically visitor, and a drawer in the break room fridge labeled "Fred, do not touch," which everyone touches anyway, usually just for the creamers. It's not a glamorous life, but it's mine. The hours are weird, but steady. I get weekends off, and we don't do summer classes, so I get a full 3 months every year to do nothing. I tell people I use the time to work on music, but really I just sleep. Or take the same long walk every morning to the same corner store where the same guy behind the counter asks me if I want my usual. I do. There's a rhythm to the job. A slow, easy beat. Like one of those old disco tracks with the long intros. Nothing happens fast. The students rotate every semester, and they're all full of energy at first. They wear their little lanyards and carry notebooks they'll stop using after the 3rd week. I teach them how to sit behind a desk without fidgeting. I let them pretend to read fake news from fake teleprompters in a fake morning segment. They love it. They ask questions like, "Is this what the real news is like?" And I tell them, "No, this is more honest." Some of them laugh. Most of them don't get it. But yeah, and I love it. I love all of it. I love the smell of the old carpets in the booth. I love the way the mic feels warm after you've been talking into it for an hour. I love the blinking red on-air sign above the door, even though it buzzes sometimes, and we've never been able to fix it. The studio itself hasn't changed in years. The main booth still has that old shag carpet on the walls. It's supposed to be for soundproofing, but really it just makes the place feel like the inside of a van from 1978. There's a window between the booth and the control room, and half the time it's fogged up from the AC running too long. The paperwork. My gosh, it's a nightmare, don't get me wrong. We have to log everything. Every track we play, every second we're on air, every student who touches the equipment. There's a folder in my desk just for incident reports, though we've only had 2 in the last 3 years. One kid tripped over a cable and broke a light. Another tried to bring his hamster on set for a live animal segment. It went exactly how you'd think. The coffee's free in the break room, which helps. It's terrible, but it's hot, and it comes out fast. There's a vending machine that takes quarters and only quarters. The best part, though, it's the students. They're so full of ideas, full of questions. They remind me of myself back when I still thought being on air meant something big. There are some strange things, though. And I'm not talking about the usual haunted campus stuff. You know the stories. Cold spots, lights flickering. Some girl drowned in the pool in 1972, and now her ghost checks IDs at the front desk or whatever. No. I mean, strange things. Things with rules. We have rules in the booth. Not your usual safety rules, stranger ones. Specific. Odd. They're written on a laminate sheet inside the booth, tacked to the corkboard under the broadcast schedule. Nobody knows who wrote them. But I have been here 4 years, and I have seen what happens when you break one. So, if you're still with me, buckle up. I've got stories. And every single one starts with a rule. The first rule is simple.
Stay inside during your entire shift. Now that might sound easy. You're thinking, Fred, why would I even leave? It's 2 a.m. You're in a booth, there's music playing, coffee in the break room. Why leave? Exactly. That is the right way to think. But sometimes people do. And that's where things go wrong. They call it the graveyard shift for a reason. I used to think that was just a figure of speech, a way of saying late as hell without sounding dramatic. But here on this campus, it feels more literal. See, there's a church about 2 blocks from the station. It's an old one, brick with stained glass windows that always look wet, even when it hasn't rained. I think it used to be part of the college, maybe back in the day when they had nuns teaching Latin or something. Now it's just there. Some students still go to Sunday Mass, not many. Right next to that church, and I mean right next to it, like the lawn just rolls into it, is the town's local graveyard. Now, why the hell would the city graveyard be placed next to a college campus? I have no clue. Maybe they ran out of space. Maybe it was just convenient. Maybe some city planner had a weird sense of humor. Give the kids a dorm, a cafeteria, and a direct view of death. Ask the mayor, I'm just the DJ. Anyway, you can see the graveyard from the back hallway of our building. There's a little service exit behind the sound booth, leads out to a loading dock. If you stand there and squint, you can see the fence. It's not a tall fence, maybe 4 feet, chain link, topped with those twisty metal bits that never seem to rust. Thing is, people say weird stuff happens down there at night. And no, I don't mean college kids passing around beer in brown paper bags. That happens too. But that's not what I'm talking about. And it's not pranksters either. We've had our share of dumb kids throwing toilet paper over the trees or sticking plastic forks into the quad grass. But even those guys don't mess with the graveyard. They say, and by they, I mean just about anyone who's worked a late shift on this campus, that you don't go near that place after dark. I used to roll my eyes at that. But there's something about that place, something that makes your skin feel too tight if you stare at it too long. One of the old tech guys, Rick, been around since the 80s, still has a ponytail and a pager, and told me something once. We were both refilling the vending machine with quarters, and he just sort of said it without looking up. Don't mess with somebody's home, he said. I thought he was talking about the graveyard being creepy. He said, no, man, I mean that literally. That's their home now. The dead. It's their place. And they don't like company. It's rude, right? Imagine you're trying to sleep and some college kid stumbles in, knocking over the lamps, making a bunch of noise. You wouldn't like it either, he said. Then he handed me a Snickers and walked away like he hadn't just said the creepiest thing I'd ever heard. I didn't believe it then, not really. But over the years, I've heard stories, little ones, like how phone alarms go off if someone steps outside after midnight, or how all of the campus cats stare at you if you try leaving through the front door. But then, there's the big story. The one we don't talk about much. About 3 years ago, someone on the night shift went missing. His name was Will. I didn't know him well. He was just filling in. I think it was between jobs. One of those guys who showed up with a clipboard and a new set of headphones, ready to learn the ropes. Nice. He was a nice guy. Quiet. He used to hum along to Earth, Wind, and Fire. One night during his shift, he left the building, said he was going to stretch his legs. He never came back. At first, we all figured he quit. People do that sometimes. It's a college job. You don't need to hand in 2 weeks' notice. if you're just running late night playlists and drinking stale coffee. But when he didn't show up the next week, and his stuff was still in his desk, people started asking questions. A week later, they found him in the lake, face down, lungs full of water. No signs of struggle, no bruises, no injuries. Just drowned, fully clothed, still had his lanyard on. The cops came by, asked their questions, made us hand over the CCTV from the station. We all crowded into the control room, expecting to see nothing, maybe a glitch, maybe him just walking out and never coming back. But the footage showed something different. It showed Will walking out the back exit, hands in his pockets, whistling, calm as anything. He walked right past the dock, past the fence, and toward the graveyard. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. I still remember the angle of the camera, all grainy and flickering like it always was. The way the motion light turned on just long enough to show his face before he stepped into the dark. After that, the rule got written down, taped to the booth wall, laminated, red marker. So now, even when I'm bored, even when the booth is hot and the hallway smells like old burritos and I really want to stretch my legs, I don't. I stay right here, where it's warm, where it's safe, where the music plays and the lights stay on and the back door stays locked. I keep the walks for when the sun's out. The second rule is just as simple as the first. Keep the show running no matter what. If you've ever worked in radio, you probably already know what dead air is. Dead air is silence. It's when the station is live, the transmitter's on, and there's nothing going out. No music, no voice, no commercials, just nothing. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's basically the worst thing you can do as a DJ. It means you've messed up. It means you weren't paying attention. And most of all, it means you've made people uncomfortable. No one likes silence on the radio. That's the whole point of the job, to keep it moving. Keep people company while they drive or work or lie awake at 2 a.m. wondering why they're still awake. When it's quiet, people notice. It pulls them out of their lives, makes them start thinking. Sometimes too much. That's why DJs talk so much. Even when we've got nothing to say, we fill the space. Weather updates, birthday shoutouts, long rambles about the history of a song no one asked for. Doesn't matter. It's not about what you say, it's about not stopping ever. We even have an alarm for it. If there's more than 5 seconds of silence, the high-pitched tone goes off in the booth, loud enough to make your ears ring, louder than any fire alarm. First time I heard it, I thought something exploded. It only ever happens when someone's new or something breaks. You've got to be really out of it to let air go dead. But sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes the silence creeps in anyway. I remember the first time it happened under my shift. It was a Wednesday, around 3:10 a.m., back when we still did a listener's choice segment. I was flipping through vinyl, trying to find the right Earth, Wind, and Fire track for a guy who claimed he'd just gotten engaged. I guess September felt romantic to him. I was mid-sentence when everything cut out. Mic was on, turntable was spinning, but the board light blinked red. Dead air. And the alarm screamed. I panicked, of course. Hit every button I could reach. Switched tracks, turned knobs. Nothing. It only lasted 10 seconds. But the second the sound kicked back in, the phone rang. Now that's not unusual by itself. We get calls, requests. Sometimes someone just wants to say hi, or complain that a track played last week wasn't the original version. But this one felt strange. I picked up and said my usual, "You're on air with Fred at WZNU. What can I spin for you?" There was a pause. Then a woman spoke. Her voice was soft, polite, old-fashioned almost. She sounded like someone reading from a script, but gently, like she'd rehearsed the call in her head for days. She said, "I was wondering if you could play Just the Way You Are by Billy Joel. That was our wedding song. Me and my husband's." I said, "Sure, yeah, no problem. When was the big day?" Another pause. She said, "August 9th, 1979. Now, I know people love their oldies, but most of our callers weren't even born in the 70s. I figured it was someone pulling a prank. Happens sometimes. Still, I had the record, so I played it. Thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. She called again the next night. Same time. Asked for the same song. Then again 2 nights later. Always polite, never loud or rude. I started recognizing her voice. She had a kind of calm that stuck in your ears, like church bells heard from a distance. Eventually, I asked her name. She said, "Mary. Mary Glass." That name stuck with me. Felt old somehow. I told one of my friends about it, a journalist who works out of the city. He's the type of guy who digs through public records for fun. I figured he'd laugh. Instead, he called me back the next day. "Hey, Fred, you wanna know something weird?" he asked. "Always." "She's dead." "Who?" I asked. "Mary Glass. Died in 1979. Car accident. 3 months after a wedding. Says so in the archives. There's even a picture. Looks a little like my grandma," he said. I thought maybe it was someone using her name. Maybe a relative. Some weird college project. But we kept getting the calls. Even now, sometimes during the night shift, when things go quiet for too long, the red light on the phone blinks. No ring, just blinks. And if you answer, which I don't anymore, you'll hear her. Always polite. Always thankful. The weirdest part, she doesn't know she's dead. She talks like she's still living in it. 1979. Tells stories about her husband mowing the lawn, about getting ready for their honeymoon, about the way her dress fit funny at the shoulders. Like it's all still happening. The problem is, once you pick up, she keeps calling. No matter what track's playing, no matter what segment, she finds a way to break in. We had one intern, Cole, who thought the whole thing was fake, picked up on purpose, laughed and played along. But his next 3 shows were a disaster. Every time he tried to talk, the mic would cut out. Every time he played a record, the sound would bend and slow. And the phone kept blinking, non-stop. We finally had to pull him off the schedule. He didn't come back the next semester. Now we just don't answer. Let it ring, let it blink. Whatever happens, don't stop the show. You see, the dead think dead air is an invitation. That silence, the kind you only get at 3:17 a.m. when the world's holding its breath. That's when they slip through. People fill the spaces you leave empty with their own hopes, wishes, opinions. And that's true for the dead, too. Especially the ones who don't know they've passed on. So we fill the air every second, even if we have to ramble, even if we just hum into the mic. I have told every new DJ the same thing. Don't let the silence settle. Not even for a moment. Because once you've invited the dead in, it's hard to get them out.
The third rule might sound strange if this is your first time working radio. Rule number 3, ignore station number 7. You probably don't know what I mean by that. That's fine. Most people don't when they're new to this job. It's one of those things that doesn't come up in normal conversation. But if you spend enough time in this building, working the booth late at night, you'll learn fast. Sometimes Station 7 will call. You'll be in the middle of a track, maybe sipping your coffee, maybe flipping through the weather script, and then the phone rings, or the fax machine starts, or your email pings with a subject line that just says Green FM. You'll look at the number. It won't show up like a normal call. No area code, no ID, just a number 7. Sometimes it's written out, Station 7 calling. Sometimes it just says 7. Ignore it. Don't answer, don't reply, don't even open the message if you can help it. The first time it happened to me, I was halfway through a Bee Gees set, More Than a Woman spinning on the turntable, when I knocked over my coffee. The mug tipped and clattered against the console, spilling lukewarm coffee across the playlist log. I swore under my breath and grabbed a handful of napkins from the drawer. That's when the phone light blinked. Bright red, silent. Just one word on the screen. 7. I wiped my hands and reached for the receiver, still shaking droplets off my fingers. Before I could pick it up, the light shut off. No ring, just that quick flash, then nothing. The booth felt off after that. I couldn't explain it, but something in the room had shifted. Like the moment you realize someone's been standing behind you longer than they should have. The next morning, I told Rick about it. He was crouched at the vending machine, swapping out quarters. He didn't look up when I spoke. "Yeah, I had a call come in last night. Missed it. The screen just said 7. You ever seen that before?" I asked. He paused for a beat, slipped another coin into the slot. He asked me if I answered. "No, knocked over my coffee, barely missed it," I said. He nodded slowly, quiet, and he said that's probably for the best. He fished a candy bar out of the tray, still didn't look at me, and he told me that Station 7 used to be local, and they've been off the air for a long time. That was all he said. Then he walked off. Now in radio, when we say a station's gone dark, we mean it's gone off air. Could be temporary, loss of funding, technical problems, whatever. But sometimes it's forever. We call those dark stations, still listed in old registries, but gone, static, ghost on the frequency. Station 7 was one of those. Back in the 70s, it was a real place. Green FM 95.9. They used to broadcast from a big farmhouse on the edge of town. Rumor was, it started as a hippie operation, all incense and protest songs. But if you ask the older staff, they'll tell you it was something else entirely. A cult. Back then, that wasn't so unusual. New Age stuff was all over the place. Love, freedom, barefoot dancing in the fields. And sometimes, religion. Homemade religions. The kind where everyone smiles too wide and no one ever leaves. Station 7 was popular though. Played the biggest hits. Always had callers. People said the music had this warmth to it, like it hugged you through the speaker. And then one summer, the whole place burned down. No survivors. Some say it was an accident. Some say it wasn't. Either way, the building's still there. Or what's left of it. The land never sold. The town just built around it, like trying to avoid eye contact with a bad memory. And yet,
They still call. Station 7 still rings us sometimes. We've got faxes with full playlist, handwritten, neat cursive, with dates from 1974, artists no one plays anymore, jingles that don't exist in any archive. Once, a new intern replied to one of the emails, hit reply all like it was a joke, typed, "Ha ha, you guys still broadcasting from the afterlife?" He didn't sleep for 2 days after that. Wouldn't tell us why. There are other dark stations out there too. Not just here. There's one in Nebraska, next to an old goat farm. I don't know what happened to them, but the story goes that the animals kept breaking free, always running toward the transmitter tower. They stopped fixing the fence after the 3rd time. There's another in New York, used to sit under a bridge. No DJ, just a looped voice reading poetry and crying. People said the broadcast made you feel like jumping. They shut it down after the 3rd body. One in Chicago. I've only heard stories. People claim it was a doorway to something else, like a hallway that never ends. They say you could hear footsteps in the background of every track. Most of them don't reach out, but Station 7 does. So here's the rule. Ignore them. The 4th rule is easiest to follow, in my opinion. Rule number 4. Leave a cup of coffee by the door at the end of your shift. At the end of each night, after the last track fades and the booth goes quiet, we do a wrap-up. It's informal, just whoever's still around. Usually a student intern, sometimes one of the tech guys if something broke mid-show. We go over how the broadcast went, make sure everything ran clean, and talk through anything strange that might have happened. A faulty mic, a late call-in, something skipping on the turntable. Little things like that matter more than you think. These meetings are called post-mortems. That's the actual term. Production people use it all the time, a breakdown after the fact. I always thought it sounded too dramatic for what we do. But the name stuck. Even the new kids start calling it that after a few weeks. They like how serious it sounds. We don't have a real conference table or anything. Most of the time we just sit on the edge of the stage in Studio B, legs dangling off the side, drinking whatever's left in our cups. I like hearing how the students describe the night. They notice different things. Energy in the room, tone of voice, weird silences that only they seem to catch. Sometimes they surprise me. Once everyone's had their say, they start heading out. One by one, they grab their bags, check their phones, and disappear into the hallway. The doors shut behind them. The lights turn off, one switch at a time, and then the building is still. That's when I go to the back kitchen. Not the nice one with the new coffee machine. The smaller one, with a warped counter and the peeling linoleum floor. The old fridge buzzes when it runs, and there's always a slight smell of burnt toast, even when no one's cooked anything. It's tucked away behind the break room, down a short hallway that never feels quite long enough. The red mug sits on the top shelf of the cabinet. Everyone knows it's there. Wide handle, heavy ceramic, chipped near the rim. Bright red. The kind of red that doesn't fade with time. You grab it, rinse it out, and make one last cup of coffee. Just black, no sugar, no cream. You set it by the door. Not the front entrance, not the glass one with a campus seal. The side door next to the soundproof hall. The one people forget is even there. Right under the emergency light. That's where the mug goes. You place it carefully on the little wooden bench against the wall. Handle turned outward. Steam rising, if you're quick enough with the brew. Then you leave. I never skip this step. No one does. Not even the students. If I forget to remind them, they'll remind me. It's just something we do. I asked Rick about it once, back when I first started. He told me it was a habit. Said the person who closes the station has always left something behind, going all the way back to the 70s. Coffee most times. Once, he said, someone left a bottle of Coke and came back to find the cap unscrewed and the label peeled off. The red mug became the standard. Rick also said something I never forgot. He told me his grandma believed red was a color that could be seen from the other side, not just noticed, but understood. The color of blood, the color of breath, life clinging to the edge of everything. He said coffee was the drug of the living, and maybe, if the other kind of folks were passing through, they'd see the red, smell the coffee, and move on. Nobody watches the mug. Nobody stands around to see who, or what, takes it. But every morning, when the first person unlocks the building, the cup is empty. Doesn't matter how early. Doesn't matter if the person opening is a student or a janitor or one of the professors checking in early for a recording session. The cup is always empty. One time, I decided to leave early. Figured the intern could lock up. Been a long night. Didn't feel like waiting around. I skipped the coffee. Told myself it was tradition, nothing more. Next morning, the back door was open. Just an inch. Like someone had pushed it, but didn't step through. No one had checked in yet. I made the coffee after that. Every single night. I don't know if it matters. I don't know who drinks it. Maybe it's superstition. Maybe it's the only thing keeping the walls here from falling inward. All I know is that this place runs smoother when the mug is full and warm before I leave. You don't always need answers. Sometimes you just need to follow the rules. Well, it's been 4 years and change since I first walked into the station. Just meant to be a gig. Few semesters while I figured things out. A pause between what I thought was college life and whatever came after. But I stayed. Some people keep photo albums. Some people keep journals. Me? I've got playlists. Dozens of them. Labeled by date, mood, weather. I can tell you exactly what I was doing on a rainy Thursday 3 years ago just by what track I queued up. The records never lie. I've seen the rules posted on the wall 1,000 times. Most folks stop noticing them after a while. They blend into the corkboard, somewhere between the fire escape diagram and the outdated flyer for improv night. But I look at them every shift. Make sure they're still there. Make sure nothing's changed. Because the rules work. I have followed them, every one. Stayed inside, kept the airwaves full, ignored the calls I wasn't supposed to answer, left the coffee, always in the red mug, always warm, always gone by morning. And in return, the station has stayed quiet. Mostly. There are nights the booths feel just a little too still. Lights take a second longer to come on. The mic buzzes faintly, even when it shouldn't. I don't mention those things in the post-mortem. No reason to spook the new kids. They'll find their rhythm soon enough. Rick says he's probably retiring next year. He didn't make a big deal out of it, just mentioned it while cleaning the vending machine. I think he's tired, and I don't blame him. The building's starting to show its age. Carpets worn down to the threads in the sound booth. Ceiling tile over Studio B still leaks when it rains too hard. But the signal's clear. The turntables are still spinning. Last week, one of the students lingered after class, said she liked the quiet hours, asked if I thought she could handle the night shift. I asked if she was good at following instructions, and she said yes. I told her to memorize the rules. She nodded. Some places run on schedules. Others run on people. This one runs on rituals. And they only work if someone keeps them going. If you ever take this job, good luck. And follow the rules.
Hey there, I'm Ben. I take care of things out here. Night shift stuff mostly. If you're planning to get into this line of work, I figure it's best you know who's talking to you. I didn't start out in this line of work though. Back in the day, I was a successful banker at McKinley's. I had this desk that was walnut and longer than most dining room tables. I kept a bottle of 20-year-old scotch in the bottom drawer and only poured it when someone got fired. And I made sure that happened often. I had a view of the river and a girl who brought me coffee before I asked for it. Her name was Jenna. She wasn't my assistant. She was my assistant's assistant. I still don't know who my actual assistant was. There was a stretch, maybe 3 years, where I didn't carry a wallet. Didn't need one. Everything was comped. Restaurants knew me by name. Clubs didn't check my ID. The elevator at my building skipped the lobby if I was on it. I was the kind of man who walked into a boardroom and made the CFO shut up with one look. Now, power, it's not some vague idea. It's real. It's your name in bold at the top of a memo. It's private car rides. It's signing someone else's raise or firing them before lunch because you felt like steak that day. You can smell money when you're in it deep enough. It's in the glue of the leather seats. It's in the ink of your signature. And I soaked it in. They say I slipped up. They say I made the wrong call, insulted the wrong person, touched something I wasn't supposed to. And that's all true. But everyone does that. The difference is I didn't kiss the right ass afterward. I didn't beg. So they kicked me out. Quietly. 1 month I was approving international deals. The next I was getting bounced from my own email account. My badge stopped working. I called building security and they said, "We were told not to let you in." And that was 10 years ago. Now, I walk in boots through wet grass, a flashlight duct taped to a plastic stick in my hand. They call me a night watchman. They pay me in cash every 2 weeks. The job's simple. Walk the fence, check the locks, report anything unusual. This is the edge of nowhere. One road in, one road out. The graveyard stretches wider than you'd think. They bury people cheap out here. No gates, just iron chains looped between stone posts. The kind of place where nobody visits the dead. It's like they're dumped and forgotten, which is perfect for what I do. See, I don't care about peace. I care about profit. There's good money in cadavers. Real money. Not that corporate garbage with bonuses and taxes. I'm talking untraceable, unreported, sealed envelope cash. The kind that smells like plastic and rubber bands. Medical schools want fresh tissue. Rich weirdos want bones. People pay thousands for a real skull. You know that? I bet you didn't know that. The first time I dug one up, I was shaking. Not from fear, from excitement, from relief. It wasn't hard. I already had the keys to the storage shed. I borrowed a spade and some bolt cutters, took a look at the burial map, found a name that sounded recent. They put a little plastic tag on the post when it's fresh. Easier than headstones, saves the family money. Well, it took me maybe 3 hours. That dirt peels back like
cake if you hit it right after a rain. The coffin was thin, budget wood. Didn't even need to pry. I just cracked it with a crowbar and reached in. The body was still soft, and that's the best time, before the rot starts. When the muscles still stretch like jerky and the skin hasn't gone too black. That's when the schools want them. That's when the collectors pay the most. Well, I wrapped it in tarp, drove it out in my trunk, dumped it in a freezer I bought from a retired butcher. You should have seen the look on the guy's face when I asked if it could hold the whole deer. I paid him double and he didn't ask again. The buyer came a week later. Quiet guy. Thick glasses. It smelled like paper. He peeled off 20 50s and stuffed them in an envelope. Said he'd be back next week if I could get another. Well, that night, I drank scotch from a chipped mug and sat on the floor of my trailer counting out 10 grand in perfect silence. You wouldn't believe it, but it felt better than any promotion I had ever got. Now I've got a system. I only pull bodies on cloudy nights, and I rotate the areas. I mark the headstones with chalk so I don't hit the same row twice. I keep track of name, age, date. You get more for a full adult, especially male, especially recent. Teeth intact is a bonus. I don't drink much anymore. I don't need to. The sound of the shovel slicing down clean into a new patch of earth, that's better than a buzz. The first tap of metal on cheap pine. The way the body shifts when you lift it, and the joints pop like bubble wrap. That's the kind of thing that sticks with you. Lately, I've had this itch to write things down. I don't want to confess. And no, I'm not done. It's like what they say about killers going back to the scene, you know? It's not because they feel bad. It's because, well, they feel proud. It's that cold little thrill that comes from knowing you're better than the people trying to catch you. You don't want to get caught, but deep down, you want someone to know how good you really are. And so that's why I'm telling you this. These are the rules of the trade I have come to know, and now I'm passing them on to you. So listen well, because there are some strange rules to follow. All right, so let's get to it. Rule number 1. Don't crack open sealed crypts. You'll know them when you see them. Stone boxes, usually above ground, or half buried into hillsides. Big brass nameplates. Marble lids with bolts sunk deep. They're sealed for a reason. And it's not just for looks. The inside pressure builds after a while. Gases, fluids, whatever the hell happens in there once the rot starts baking in. One winter, about 6 years ago, I got a little cocky and I decided to try one. We were still figuring things out back then. Me and Danny, my first partner, he was smaller than me, wiry, never shut up. Thought this job was some big horror movie. Kept quoting books and saying creepy stuff to sound smart. I tolerated him because he could work fast. Well, we got a tip that this one crypt at the back of the south lot had a woman in it who died young and rich. Some kind of embalming test case, supposedly, I don't know. They said she was almost perfect still. The kind of thing medical labs would pay double for. We hit it at midnight. Fog in the air, boots crunching under gravel. We brought bolt cutters, chisels, and a car jack, just in case. Took us 40 minutes to get the bolts loose. I kept checking over my shoulder, not for cops, just out of instinct. Danny unhooked the last bolt and wedged the lid up with a jack. The second it gave, we heard a low, wet crack, and then it blew. I was a few feet back, digging through the tool bag. He was right in front. The sound was sharp, like snapping a water balloon with a nail gun. Brown red fluid shot out across his arms and face. Steam rose off it. I remember the way he screamed. Not loud, more like gritting his teeth through it. We dragged him to the truck, stripped his jacket off, dumped bottled water over his arms, anything we had. His hands were the worst. He kept them wrapped for months, still has to wear gloves in the summer. He doesn't dig anymore. Last I heard, he was working security at a Walmart outside Kingston. So yeah, don't open crypts. Not unless you're wearing full gear and getting paid triple. And even then, ask yourself how fast you can run with acid on your face. Rule 2. Never steal from a grave with coins on the lid. Doesn't matter how fresh the burial is, how nice the body, how good the cash. If there are coins, old pennies, foreign currency, casino chips, doesn't matter. Leave it alone. They're not decorations. Sometimes it's military, war veterans. Certain branches leave coins as a code. A quarter means that the person who left it was there when the guy died. A dime means they served together. Each coin has a meaning, and people who care what those meanings are also care about where the body ends up. Sometimes it's worse. There was a guy I knew named Kyle, worked 2 towns over. We crossed paths a few times, shared a few tips. He was faster than me, stronger too. Thought he was slick. Thought he could outdig me. Last time I saw him, he was bragging about a tall body he pulled just east of here. Said the guy was 6'4", 40-something, fresh from out of state. Said there was a nickel sitting right in the middle of the lid. I asked if he left it. He laughed and said, "What, you superstitious?" And that was the last conversation we had. They found his truck parked crooked on the roadside, driver door open, engine cold. The gear was gone. No body, no tools, just a torn receipt stuck under the wiper from a gas station 2 counties south. I didn't find out what really happened until weeks later. A friend of mine used to run with one of the syndicates out of Syracuse told me straight. Kyle had stolen from a grave he shouldn't have touched. Said it belonged to one of theirs. Not a boss, not anyone special. Just a soldier who died quiet. They put that coin there for a reason. It meant hands off. Kyle didn't listen. 3 nights after the dig, they caught him at the bar he liked up in Roscoe. Didn't make a scene. Just waited for him to walk out the back. They beat him with a pipe and a tire iron. Broke both his legs and most of his ribs. Didn't kill him, not yet. They wrapped him in tarp and dumped him back in the same grave he'd robbed. Slammed the coffin shut, with him still alive inside. Nailed it. Covered it. Smoothed the dirt. Nobody called the cops. No one filed a missing persons report. That's how these guys work. They don't care about you till you piss them off. So don't touch their dead and you're fine. That's the rule. Since then, I've seen maybe a dozen marked graves like that. Coins lined up carefully, balanced so they don't fall. Once, I found a whole ring of quarters stacked like a crown around the headstone. I turned around and didn't come back for a month. Don't try to guess which ones are probably fine. Don't touch the marked ones. There's enough dead to go around. Rule 3. Talk to the guy in the green hoodie. He's not staff, not police. He's not even a person, far as I can tell. But he shows up like he is. I started seeing him during my 3rd year out here. Cold night, no moon. I was doing my rounds near Section D, carrying a lantern since the flashlight was dead. I looked up and saw someone leaning against a tall headstone, one of those statues with angel wings and praying hands. The guy was wearing this deep green hoodie, the kind you find in gas station bins. The hood was pulled way down, real low, and I couldn't see his face. Not even a nose. Just the black under that hood, like it went too far back. He had this cigarette between his fingers. I could smell it from 10 feet away. Floral, sour, not right. Like perfume from a funeral home got burned into paper and ash. I asked him if he was lost. He said, "No, I used to work here." That's all he said. Didn't introduce himself, didn't move. Just smoked and stared. I call him Jimmy now. I don't know why. He doesn't seem to mind. First few times I saw him, I thought maybe he was casing the place. Some kind of rival, or maybe a collector who liked to watch. Once, I told him to stop following me. He looked up, still couldn't see a face, and said, "I wasn't." He doesn't show up every night, but if I'm working a site, odds are he'll be nearby, leaning against a headstone, sitting cross-legged on a slab, lurking just outside the glow of the lantern. And he never changes. Same hoodie, same jeans, same awful cigarette. He doesn't age, doesn't blink. He's been the same since the first time I saw him. I stopped asking questions. Now, when I see him, I nod and say, "Evening, Jimmy." Sometimes he nods back, sometimes he doesn't. One time I found him digging alone, quiet little corner of the graveyard near a tree line. There was no shovel, but the dirt was flying out like someone was tossing it from underneath. I stood there and watched for maybe 5 seconds before I turned around and left. Didn't speak, didn't ask. All I know is this. If you see Jimmy, talk to him. Don't ignore him. Don't yell at him, just say hi. Tell him I said hello too. He seems to remember me. And you know what they say, always be polite to the dead. Rule 4. Never dig into a grave with no headstone. Unmarked graves are bad business. I used to think they were gold mines. No visitors, no records, no risk. But that was before I saw what happened to a guy named Morris. Morris was new. Big arms, prison tattoos. Said he used to be a mechanic. Said he wasn't scared of dirt or death. Always talking tough, always grinning, like nothing out here could scare him. He asked if he could tag along on a job, and I said no. 2 weeks later, he called me up in the middle of the night, said he found a grave I must have missed, said it was fresh, still had a ridge in the dirt, but no headstone, no cross, no tag, just a bare patch of land near the east border, down by the older burials. I told him to leave it alone. He laughed and said, "Come on, Ben, you scared?" Next morning, I found his car parked sideways against a cypress tree. Door wide open. Radio still playing some old country song on repeat. There were drag marks in the grass. We followed him. It took 5 men and 2 hours to get the soil cleared. The dirt was packed wrong, like it'd been folded from the inside. And it stank, like old milk and burnt hair. We hit Bone within minutes. Then we hit Morris. He was curled up under the thing he'd found, His arms were wrapped around his chest, his eyes wide open. He'd been dead for maybe a day, but his face looked older, skin drawn tight, hands shredded from clawing upward. They said he died of a heart attack. But the weird thing, the body below him wasn't a normal one. It wasn't even whole, just ribs, a jaw, and something else, something with fingers longer than mine and no eyes at all. The guys that helped me rebury them didn't ask questions. We dug deep, poured lime, sealed it, planted a proper stone this time. Morris is buried right beside the thing he found. I don't know what it was, but I've seen graves like that since. No marker, no flowers, just hard-packed dirt and nothing else. And I don't go near them. I don't even step over them. I walk around every time, even if it takes an extra hour. Now, I'm not a religious kind of guy. I grew up in the South, went to church because my parents made me. We'd eat corn muffins afterward and pretend the preacher didn't fall asleep halfway through his own sermon. I stopped believing a long time ago. But unmarked graves are unblessed. That's the truth. And they don't stay down. Sometimes it's 60 days. Sometimes it's 6 years. Doesn't matter. When they rise, they're not people anymore. They're not even ghosts. They're things with hunger bigger than mine. And I have got a hell of an appetite. They don't eat like people. They feed. You touch one of their graves and it wakes them up. They follow you. And they won't stop until you're under the dirt next to them. So don't touch them. Whatever stories you've heard about vampires or ghouls or zombies, those are bedtime stories compared to what comes out of an unblessed grave. There's no profit in it. No price high enough. So stay clear. Rule 5. Never rob a grave guarded by a dog. They look like German shepherds at first glance. Big ones, taller than you'd expect. Clean black fur, no patchy spots, no collar. Just all black like they've been dipped in ink. They don't bark, don't growl. They just stand there, close to the grave, watching. If you see one, don't move fast. Don't talk loud. Don't even look it in the eye. Just turn around and leave that plot alone. I've only seen 3 since I started, and that's 3 too many. There's a story that goes with the first one. I wasn't there when it happened, but I saw what was left afterward. It was a guy named Patrick. Young, a little dumb in the way all youngsters are. New to the job. Thought it was all superstition and stories. Thought I was trying to scare him off good turf. The first time he saw the dog, he thought it was a stray. Said it looked calm, sitting next to a headstone marked Walter C. Hanley. Nothing else. No dates, no flowers, no coin. Just a name and a slab of gray stone. The dog sat real still, tail curled tight around its legs. Didn't blink, didn't breathe either from what he said. Patrick tried to scare it off by shouting, and nothing. He threw a stick. That's when it stood up. It didn't bark, didn't make a sound at all. It just stepped forward and closed the space between them like a shadow, quick and smooth. Patrick reached for his shovel. He didn't make it 5 feet. They say the dog bit his face clean off. He was still alive when the first truck got there. Died 6 minutes later on the back of a gurney. I saw the photos. Didn't eat lunch for 2 days. We tried to trap the dog the next night. 2 of us brought a cage, raw beef, sleeping pills, a taser. Never even saw it. Grave was there, same as always, but no dog. The dirt looked smooth, like someone had brushed it. That's when we figured it out. It wasn't a dog. It was the dog. A grave hound. You ever hear about the god of the underworld? The one with the 3-headed mutt at the gates? This is like that. Same blood, maybe. A smaller version. The kind that guards one grave, not the whole afterlife. And once it's set, it stays. Gravehounds don't wander. They don't get lost. They don't chase cars or dig holes or beg for scraps. They don't respond to meat, treats, whistles, none of it. You can throw steak at them and they won't even twitch. They're tied to a grave like chains, and you don't want to find out who they belong to. Sometimes it's witches. Sometimes it's vampires. The real old ones that hide underground and sleep for decades. Sometimes it's just someone rich enough or sick enough to put a blood contract on their bones. Doesn't matter what the reason is. If you see a gravehound, that patch of dirt is off limits forever. I watched one for 20 straight minutes once. Didn't move, didn't blink. Just stared at me from 30 yards out while I walked my route. Sat next to a child's grave with an unlit lantern by the stone, like someone expected visitors. It never growled, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I didn't even try to dig that night. Just packed up and went home early. They say the only way you can recognize one for sure is the eyes. It's not just that they're red. I've seen bloodshot eyes before. I've seen animal eyes glow under lights. This isn't that. These dogs have red everywhere. The pupils, the iris, even the parts that should be white. No veins, no color shifts. Just full-on, deep, slow-burning red, like someone left hot coals behind their sockets. And when they look at you, you feel it, like they've already chosen where to bite. They don't chase you unless you cross a line. That's the only good thing. They won't leap out of the dark and rip your throat out just for looking. But once you dig, that's it. That's your last act. I've seen grown men cry just standing near one. There was a guy, Marty, who thought he could distract one with a squirrel carcass he found in the woods, tossed it 20 feet away, and tried to circle behind the grave. Thought he was clever. He lost 2 fingers and a kneecap. Still limps to this day. Doesn't work with bodies anymore. Spends his nights fixing vending machines. You can't trick something that doesn't want anything. That's what gravehounds are. They don't eat. They don't sleep. They don't fetch. They exist for one job, and they do it better than anyone. So if you're out there one night, walking through the rows, and you see a black shape curled beside a headstone with red eyes watching you, don't be brave. Don't be clever. Don't be anything except gone. Never rob a grave guarded by a dog. Rule 6. Never stay in the same place more than 6 months. That's the max. After that, you pack up. Doesn't matter how good the turf is. Doesn't matter how much cash you've got stashed under the floorboard. You move towns, move counties, maybe even states if you're smart. And no, I don't mean to dodge the cops, though that's smart too. This rule isn't about the law. It's about them. The dead. You stay too long, they start to recognize you. Not right away. The first few digs are easy. You're new, you're quick, the bodies are fresh and dumb. But after a while, they start to notice. I don't know how it works exactly. Maybe it's memory. Maybe it's something deeper. You ever dug someone up and thought the body looked like it was trying to move? Not twitch, not spasm. I mean trying. Like the fingers were already curling before you touched them. Like the lips were just waiting for your face to get close. That starts around month 4. By month 5, you'll wake up some mornings and find your tools moved. Not stolen, just shifted. Like someone dragged the shovel 3 inches to the left while you slept. I once woke up to find the burial map I kept tucked under my mattress covered in dirt smudges. I don't live with anyone. But it was month 6 where I learned what happens if you stay too long. It was 3 years ago. Small town west of Athens, Georgia. Flat fields, cheap plots. No one visited the dead except the lawn crew. It was good work. Made more in 5 months than I had in my best year in the city. So I stayed, even though I'd already started to feel it. That prickling weight behind me when I walked between rows. That tug in my hand every time I lifted a body. Like they didn't want to let go. I ignored it. And then right around the start of month 6, I pulled the dig on a Tuesday night. Quiet one. Solo plot. Man in his 70s. Heart failure, I think. The file said he'd been buried with a gold ring and 3 teeth replaced with capped metal. Easy payday. I opened the coffin and reached down with my gloves. His eyes were open. Not crusted open. Not shifted during decay. I mean open wide. Like he'd been waiting for me. I stepped back fast. My hand slipped on the lid, and I nearly dropped the crowbar. When I looked again, the eyes were closed, just like a normal body. I took the ring, grabbed the teeth, and wrapped him like usual. Told myself I was imagining things. I didn't go home that night. Slept in my truck. Didn't sleep much. 2 nights later, I woke up to someone knocking on the trailer door. Not pounding, just slow taps. 3. Wait. Then 2 more. I sat there with my knife and didn't open it. After a while, I peeked through the corner of the window. No one was there. But someone had dragged dirt up the steps. Muddy shoe prints. Bare feet, actually. You could see the arches and toes. They went up the steps and didn't come back down. I left town that same night. Didn't even pack my freezer. You think the dead like being dead? They don't. Let alone being dug up and sold like scrap meat. You're not just robbing them. You're pulling them back into a world they thought they were finally done with. And some of them aren't really even dead. Not in the medical sense. In the cursed sense. You never know who you're digging up. Could be a man who made a deal with a witch. Could be someone buried alive and left to rot. Could be worse. Demon cults. Failed experiments. Those ancient bloodlines that come from places the maps forget. They all end up 6 feet down, same as everyone else. But what they were before they got there, that stays with them. You dig them up after too long, they remember you, and then they follow. Some people say it's a scent thing, like bloodhounds maybe. Maybe we carry a smell the dead recognize once we start violating them. But I think it's more than that. Grave robbing marks you. It stains, like grease that won't wash off no matter how many showers you take, like mold under your skin. You can't see it, but it's there, and it pulls things toward you. You've broken every rule written by man and God. You've stolen from the earth, from the peace, from what little dignity the dead had left. That kind of thing doesn't go unnoticed. So you leave. You take the cash. You wipe down your gear. You vanish. That's the trick. Move before they start catching up. Before they learn your scent. Before they start digging back. Because they will. Look, I never said I was a good person. I don't think you can be and still do this kind of work. But I know why I do it. The money's real. And the risk is real too. So that's the last rule. Once you start doing this, you'll see more money than you ever held in your hands before. Thick stacks, clean bills, enough to drown a man. But you can never stay in one place for too long. Pros and cons of the job, you know? Among other things. Well, 6 months. That's where I'm at. Tonight's the last night. I've already cleared out the trailer, packed the freezer, and loaded the truck. The road west is calling, but I'm not wasting time. It's a clean break, just the way it's supposed to be. Never leave footprints, never leave a name. Besides, the signs are there. I saw another gravehound 3 days ago, pacing near the edge of the north fence. Same black coat, same glowing red eyes. But this one didn't just sit and stare. It growled when it saw me, low and slow, like it recognized me. Well, I didn't stick around, just turned and walked. I've learned not to argue with warnings like that. So I'm getting out of here before something worse shows up. I always do. If you've made it this far through everything I've told you, I figure you are either curious or crazy. Maybe both. Maybe you're thinking about trying the job yourself. Maybe you've already picked out a shovel. Maybe you're eyeing the local cemetery at night, wondering how soft the ground might be after rain. Well, if you are, then good luck to you. Just stay the hell off my turf, you got that? And good luck to your soul, too. I'm no priest, I never was. Closest I ever got to a sermon was falling asleep in a church pew while my mother sang 3 rows down. I stopped believing in heaven and hell around the same time I started counting dollar bills with bloody gloves. But even I know when a line's been crossed. And grave robbing isn't just crossing it. It's grinding that line into the dirt and walking away richer. Still, I'm not here to tell you what kind of person you are. That is none of my business. I am the last man on earth qualified to judge anyone. You want the money? The rush? The freedom? Fine by me, I won't stop you. Hell, I respect the guts it takes to even think about doing this kind of work. Most people don't have the spine for it. Most people wouldn't even dig a hole for free, let alone rob one for cash. But if you do start, and if you survive long enough, maybe we'll cross paths one day. Could be out in the middle of nowhere, some rest stop just off the highway, sharing a gas station sandwich and a couple warm beers. Maybe we'll trade stories and compare scars and laugh like we both don't sleep with knives under our pillows. But if not,
If this is the last time we ever cross lines, just remember the rules. Break one, and something will come for you. Might be slow, might be fast, but it'll come. And that's all I've got to say. I've got a full tank and an empty highway ahead of me. There's another graveyard out there waiting, and I plan on getting to it before the dirt dries too much. And when they finally get me, I won't beg. I'll just go into the dirt nice and easy. Because I earned my place there. And I deserve it. My name is Jason. I'm 32 years old and I work in an Amazon warehouse out in the middle of nowhere. It's one of those massive fulfillment centers, surrounded by nothing but flat land and a few scattered trees. The kind of place where the wind always seems to be blowing, but you can't tell where it's coming from. I didn't plan on ending up here. Back in high school, I had dreams of becoming a graphic designer. I even took a few community college courses, but life had other plans. Bills piled up, and I needed a job that paid immediately. That's how I found myself at this warehouse, packing boxes and shipping them out day after day. The job is monotonous. I spend hours scanning items, placing them into boxes, and sealing them up. The rhythm is almost hypnotic. And sometimes I catch myself going through the motions without even thinking. It's not fulfilling, but it pays daily, and that's what I need right now. My manager, Jeff, is a bald guy with a beer belly and a fondness for old sitcoms. He often plays Golden Girls reruns in the break room, laughing louder than anyone else. Despite his quirks, he's a decent guy. He doesn't micromanage, which is good. Lets us do our work as long as we meet our quotas. The break room is a small windowless space with a few vending machines and a coffee maker that produces something resembling coffee. During breaks, I usually wrestle with a vending machine, which seems to have a mind of its own, and sip on the bitter coffee while watching whatever Jeff has on the TV. My coworkers are a mixed bunch. There's Mike, a high school dropout who always has a new conspiracy theory to share. Some of them seem true, actually. Then there's Sarah, a former high school athlete who talks about her glory days on the track team. We don't have much in common, but we get along well enough. In a place like this, break room gossip makes the days go by a little faster. Over the months, I've noticed some odd things about this warehouse. There are certain areas we're told to avoid, and some packages that we're instructed not to open under any circumstances. At first, I thought it was just company policy. But the more I observed, the more I realized there was something strange going on. I've started compiling a list of these peculiar rules and guidelines, almost like an unofficial employee handbook. I share it with the new hires, hoping to prepare them for the oddities they'll encounter. It's become a sort of rite of passage, and most of them think it's a joke, until they experience it for themselves. So here they are. Let's just say this Amazon warehouse has some strange rules. Rule number 1. Don't eat the beef jerky in the vending machine. It's not beef. I know that sounds like a joke, but I mean it. Seriously, it's not beef. First few weeks on the job, I didn't think much of the vending machine. Looked like every other one. Metal, glass front, rows of snacks with that little coil that turns. But then I noticed the packaging. Everything looked off. The colors were faded, like they'd been left out in the sun. A lot of the wrappers were so old I couldn't even read the names. The chips had logos I didn't recognize. Some of the candy bars looked homemade. The plastic was cloudy, and I couldn't find an expiration date on anything. But I was tired and hungry one shift, so I tried it anyway. I picked what looked like beef jerky. I was wrong. The texture was wrong. Too soft in some places, too crunchy in others. I chewed one bite and thought maybe I was imagining things. Then I felt it. Something sharp. I spit it out in my glove and saw something pale and tiny in the mess. Looked like a tooth. That was the first and last time I touched the beef jerky. Thing is, even when the food doesn't bite back, the vending machine still messes with you. Mike tried to get a candy bar once and got a handful of toothpicks. Sarah paid for a Diet Coke and ended up with a single shoelace and a note that just said sorry in lowercase, written in blue marker on a torn scrap of cardboard. I watched it happen. She stared at it like it was a prank, but her face went real quiet, like she suddenly remembered something bad. Sometimes the machine gives you coins instead of snacks. Not quarters or dimes, foreign stuff. Weird shapes, soft metal, no markings. One looked like it had a hole punched straight through the middle. I kept that one, then I lost it. Or maybe it left. And don't ask what the sandwiches taste like. No one's made that mistake twice. The freakiest part is, the machine never stays in the same place. First time I saw it, it was in hallway B, near the mop sinks. Next shift, it was gone. A week later, it showed up near the loading dock, just standing there, like it'd always been part of the building. I asked Sarah if she remembered it ever being there before. She said no, but didn't want to talk about it. Sometimes it's by the break room, sometimes it's next to the main exit. Once I saw it in the men's bathroom, just standing next to the sinks like it belonged there. No one sees it move. I asked Jeff once, trying to sound casual. He was watching Golden Girls reruns in the break room, drinking a beer out of a travel mug. And I said, "Hey, you know who stocks that vending machine?" He paused for a second, then said, "It was here when I got here, man. I got no idea." That was it. Like, that was a good enough answer. So yeah, don't trust that thing. Especially not the beef jerky. Rule number 2. If you hear banging behind dock door 9, ignore it. Dock door 9, that's hard to say, is different from the others. First, it's red, bright red, like fire truck paint, only smoother. No other door in the warehouse looks like that. Second, it's been welded shut. 4 thick silver lines running across it in a big X. It looks like someone wanted to make sure it never opened again. Jeff told me the freezer line burst back in '09, said the whole back end of the warehouse turned into an icebox overnight. A few workers got frostbite, believe it or not. They sealed off dock door 9 after that. Said it was too dangerous. But then I asked why they welded it, not just locked it, not just blocked it. Welded it shut like they were afraid of something getting out. Jeff just said, "Some doors are better off dead." That's the kind of thing he says sometimes. I don't think he even hears himself. Now and then, during night shift, you'll hear it. The banging. Loud, heavy, like someone throwing their whole body against the door. First time I heard it, I thought it was just noise from a truck pulling up late. But then I saw the loading schedule. No trucks were due that night. Second time, it sounded closer, more desperate, and something about it didn't sound right. Not random banging. It was rhythmic, like knocking, then silence. Mike says it's just air pressure from the freezer remnants. Says there's still pipes back there, still cold storage infrastructure creaking and groaning, and maybe. But I've heard voices too. Sometimes, when it gets real quiet, you can hear something behind that door that sounds like talking. I've heard my name. Only once. Jason, it said. Calm and clear. I kept walking. Everyone has a theory. Mike thinks a monster hunter used to work there. Says he read about someone online who hunted supernatural creatures and needed a place to stash them. Claims they paid cash to rent out part of the warehouse under the radar. Said Dock Door 9 was where they kept one of them locked up. When the hunter disappeared, corporate shut the whole area off. Sarah thinks an employee got locked in there during the freezer burst. Says he lost his mind and started screaming like an animal. Maybe he died. Maybe he didn't. Either way, she doesn't go near that side of the warehouse anymore. Me. Well, I remember what my mama told me. She was a pastor's kid, grew up in a tiny house next to a tiny church, the kind with folding chairs and an out-of-tune piano. She used to tell me stories about demons. Not the movie kind. The kind that smiled too wide. The kind that sounded like your neighbor or your uncle or your friend until they got inside. She said, if something talks to you from behind a door and it doesn't show itself, don't talk back. That ain't no person, no matter what it sounds like. So when I walk past Dock Door 9, I keep my head down. I don't listen. I don't stop. And if I hear my name, I don't answer. Rule number 3. Don't wear cologne or scented lotion. When I first started working here, I used to wear this cheap cologne I got from a gas station. It smelled like pine and burnt sugar. I thought it made me smell better after a long shift, I know. Sarah made fun of me for it, said it reminded her of her high school gym lockers and bad middle school dances. Then one night, something followed me to my car. I didn't see it. Not really. But I heard the gravel crunch behind me, like footsteps. And I saw the outline of something huge in the dark. Something too big to be a coyote and too fast to be a person. I unlocked my car and jumped in. I sat there for 10 minutes, not breathing, just watching the trees. After that, I stopped wearing cologne. Jeff was the one who told me. Pulled me aside one day and said, "Yeah, don't wear scented stuff, Jason. It attracts them." Just like that. No explanation, no sarcasm, just advice. Flat and simple. "Them?" I asked. He nodded. "Werewolves hate jasmine. Makes them crazy. Wendigos don't like Axe spray. Think it smells like prey. There's others too. Coming clean, no sense. Shower if you gotta." He patted me on the shoulder and went back to watching Golden Girls. I didn't ask questions after that. Mike swears he saw something one night in the tree line, said it was 7 feet tall and walked like it had too many joints. He thinks the company keeps something in the woods, like a fence line test or something military. I'm not sure what I believe, but I've noticed the security cameras outside only point inward, not toward the forest. I also noticed Jeff keeps a tiny little bottle of baking soda in his locker. No shampoo, no soap, just a plain box of powder. He uses it to scrub up before every shift, just enough to smell like nothing. Sarah switched to unscented deodorant. She doesn't like to talk about it, but I saw the claw marks on her car once. 3 long scratches down the back bumper, like someone tried to peel it open. Rule number 4. If you find a bone in a package, reseal it and put it back on the belt. You think I'm joking, but I have seen it happen more than once. You're packing a box, regular stuff, batteries or vitamins or, I don't know, socks, and tucked in the corner, underneath the bubble wrap, there's something that looks like a piece of rib bone. Or a finger. Once, I saw what looked like part of a jaw. It had teeth. Tiny ones. Your first instinct is to stop everything. You look around for a manager. You expect alarms or someone to come running, but nothing happens. No sirens, no warnings, just silence. You look closer. No return address. No shipping label. Just a tag that says, "For the Institute." There may be 10 or 15 boxes like that every night. Not always bones. Sometimes it's something sealed in plastic that smells wrong, or a jar filled with liquid that moves on its own. I don't ask questions. None of us do. The first time it happened to me, I stared at the bone for a solid minute. Looked too big to be a dog's, too small to be a cow's. I didn't want to touch it, but I didn't know what else to do. That's when Jeff walked by. He didn't flinch, just looked at the box and said, "Red sticker. Put it back on the belt. Not your fight." So that's what I did. There's a roll of red dot stickers by the tape guns now. You see something that doesn't belong, you slap one on, seal the box, and send it back down the line. Don't put it in the return bin. Don't report it. Just let it go. And it always finds its way. Jeff always knows where to send it. Sometimes I think he doesn't sleep. Sometimes I think he's the only one here who actually knows what this place does. Mike's got a million theories. Says the warehouse is part of a secret contract with some underground research group. Says Amazon made a deal with the government years ago, and now they ship more than just diapers and books. He says the Institute is real. Says they're the ones who handle the stuff regular people aren't supposed to see. I used to laugh at him. Now I don't. Sometimes the Institute boxes hum a little, just under the tape. A low, steady sound, like something mechanical, or maybe alive. One night, Sarah swore she saw one twitch. She marked it with 2 red dots, just in case. Now, whenever I'm packing and something feels wrong, I don't even open the box all the way. I peek in, peel off a sticker, and I move on. Not my fight. It doesn't pay enough to be my fight. Rule number 5. Only take your 10-minute break in designated zones. We get 2 breaks per shift, 10 minutes each. Not a second more, not a second less. Jeff is very strict about that. You'd think it's because he's a company man, but it's not. It's because there are only 3 safe spots to take your break, and if you sit anywhere else, something might find you. The designated zones are the break room, the chair cluster behind Station C, and the bench near the mop closet by Hallway A. That's it. Nowhere else. Don't sit near Dock 9. Don't even walk near it during your break. I know one guy who did. His name was Derek. He was new, maybe 3 days in. Tall guy, neck tattoo, always chewing gum. Thought the rules were jokes. He said he liked the quiet and wanted to take his break outside by the loading dock. We warned him. He rolled his eyes and went anyway. He didn't come back. No one found a body either. His badge was still in the system. He never clocked out,
Jeff said it must have been a personal emergency, and someone from HR cleared his locker before the end of the night. But I know what happened. There's a werewolf that stalks Dock 9. It's not like the movies. No shredded clothes, no half-man nonsense. Just a creature with long legs and thick arms and yellow eyes. Sarah swears she saw it once through the break room window. Said it walked like it owned the place. The cameras don't catch it. We checked. Mike even pulled the footage from his phone one night and scrubbed through it. Nothing. But we still hear it. Late breaks, especially toward the end of the shift, sometimes you hear breathing from outside. Not fast, not heavy. Just slow and even, like it's waiting. Sometimes you'll hear a howl. I don't go near Dock 9 anymore. Not for anything. Even when Jeff asks for help moving pallets, I find an excuse. One night, I saw a streak of fur by the loading ramp. Just a flash, low to the ground, like it was crawling. No wind, no noise, just a flash. That's all it took. Now, when I take my 10, I sit in the plastic chair behind Station C. I face the wall. I sip bad coffee, and I chew old gum and count down every second until I can get back to work. It's safer that way. Rule number 6. You clock out before sunset. Always. No matter what. You'd think a company like Amazon would love overtime, but not here. Not at this warehouse. No one stays past sunset. Not the workers, not the janitors, not even Jeff. There's no warning siren or loud bell when the sun starts going down. You have to watch the windows, check the shadows, and keep an eye on the clock. When the sky starts turning orange, you drop whatever you're doing and head straight to the front office and clock out. Doesn't matter if you're in the middle of packing a box. Doesn't matter if a manager asks you to stay. Doesn't matter if you're 2 minutes from finishing a shift. When it gets close to dark, you leave. And you leave fast. I learned that my first month here. I stayed late one night. Not on purpose. I just didn't realize how fast the sky changes out here. I was working the belt near the back wall when everything got quiet. I looked up and saw the sunset bleeding through the windows. Pink, orange, purple. I thought, all right, 10 more minutes and I'm done. That's when Sarah grabbed my arm and said, "You need to go. Now." I've never seen her look that serious. We didn't even stop to log out properly. Just ran for the clock and hit the button. Jeff was already outside, holding his keys like a weapon. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Don't ever cut it that close again." Mike thinks the night brings out real monsters. Says they live under the warehouse and they only come up after dark. Says the building changes once the sun sets. Gets taller. Feels heavier. Like something wakes up inside the walls. I don't know if that's true, and I don't want to. What I do know is this. When the sky turns orange, I stop everything. I grab my things, clock out, and I get in my car. Because this place isn't safe after dark. Whatever lives here gets stronger then. And you do not want to be here. Rule number 7. Monsters are real. If you want to survive, believe it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to add this rule. It felt too big, too final. Like saying it out loud would make it harder to ignore. But after everything I've seen, everything I've heard, I knew I had to write it down. Monsters are real. actually real. Not just animals that look weird in the dark. Not just stories made up to scare kids. Not just rumors passed around during night shift to keep things interesting. I've seen too much. I've lived through too much of it to pretend anymore. They're not people in costumes. They're not misunderstandings. They're not tricks of the light. They're monsters. Different kinds, different rules. Some walk, some crawl, some mimic voices. Some just wait. But they're all here. And they all know us. Some of them stay in the corners of the warehouse. Some show up in shipments. Some move the vending machine when no one's watching. Some follow the scent of jasmine, and some sleep behind red doors, and some just wait for you to break the rules. Sarah's gonna quit, I can tell. She doesn't talk as much anymore. Doesn't joke like she used to. She keeps looking at the sky through the narrow break room window. Times her clock out to the minute. Packs her stuff before the final hour. Mike won't last long after that. He's all talk and big stories, but he needs someone like Sarah around to keep him balanced. Without her, he'll either dig too deep or give up entirely. Either way, he won't stay. And me, well, I've started looking for another job. Something slower, something far from here. Even if it doesn't pay daily, even if I have to stretch pennies, I can't keep coming back here. There's something very wrong with this place. I've written these rules for whoever comes next. The newbies. The ones who show up looking for quick cash and think this is just another warehouse job. It's not, and it never was. Take the money. Save what you can. And while you're working here, follow the rules. Every single one. Don't eat the beef jerky. Don't listen to the red door. Don't wear scented lotion. Don't open the box with bones. Don't take your break in the wrong spot. Don't stay past sunset. And most of all, remember this. Monsters are real. This job is not for keeps. You're not supposed to stay. Get in, get paid, get out. That's the only way. Me, I'll be gone soon. And when I leave, I will leave these rules taped to the back of the locker door. Look for them there. And follow them. It's the only way to survive. Because there are real monsters here. And they're hungry.